Chapter 1, She is Back. Nanchang. Angel Professional Plastic Surgery Hospital. 4th floor, operating room. Name? Su Yan. Gender? Female. Age? 18. Procedure? Sex change surgery. Female to male. Today, the first part of the surgery will be performed to remove her first female characteristics. The doctor in a white coat is holding a notebook and the nurse is taking the patient's basic information. She nods when she sees that the information is correct. Take off her shirt. Anesthetist, give her anesthesia. Su Yan lay quietly on the snow-white operating table, her eyes closed, wearing a blue and white hospital gown. Under her short black hair was a delicate and perfect little face that was indistinguishable between male and female. Her skin was as white as porcelain. Her eyelashes were long and slightly curled. Her nose was straight and tall. She wore a dazzling diamond stud in her right ear. At first glance, she looked like a boy, a handsome and beautiful boy. In fact, she is a girl. From birth, she has been dressed as a boy. The noise in her ear made her frown slightly. She felt someone's hand on her neck, and reflexively raised her hand to immediately grab the person's wrist and exert pressure with her fingers. Ah! Suddenly, the screams of a pig were heard in the operating room. What are you doing? Let go of me. The nurse screamed in pain. Su Yan opened her eyes and sat up quickly, her piercing gaze quickly scanning the scene. Where is this? A hospital? A transgender plastic surgery hospital? She's back. She's back. The fast-forward system really sent her back. She spent 1,000 years in the fast-forward world, experiencing 9,981 hardships, and finally returned to the life where she died tragically with full skills. She, Su Yan, is back. A smile curved Su Yan's lips, and she half closed her eyes in pleasure, letting go of the nurse who was grimacing in pain. What's going on? Didn't I tell you to give her a sedative in advance? The doctor shouted angrily. The nurse was aggrieved. Dr. Wang, I gave her the sedative in advance, but I don't know what happened. Su Yan's face, which was beautiful and indistinguishable between male and female, immediately turned cold at the sound. In her previous life, she was forcibly dragged into the operating room. These people gave her a sedative in advance. It was to prevent her from resisting. What's even more ridiculous is, today is her birthday. And today, her biological parents gave her a huge birthday gift, turning her from a woman dressed as a man into a man. In her previous life, it was in this hospital that she was injected with a sedative and left at their mercy. The first surgery of the female-to-male trilogy was to remove her breasts. So that when she died, she was already a monster that was neither man nor woman. Thinking of her past life, Su Yan was covered in a cold, icy aura. It was early spring, but the operating room was heated. Yet everyone felt a chill. What are you all standing around for? Hold her down and give her another sedative. Turn up the air conditioning. Dr. Wang rubbed his arms and gave the order. The nurses came over to hold Su Yan down. Su Yan was now a different person from the weak and fragile girl she had been before. Ouch. Wasn't she gentle when she first came in? Now she's so fierce. The 4 nurses couldn't do anything about her. She kicked them one after the other, sending them flying. The equipment in the operating room was also knocked around by the nurses. For a moment, the operating room was in chaos. Dr. Wang waved his hand and snatched the syringe from the nurse's hand. They're all useless. I'll do it. Su Yan sat on the bed, watching Dr. Wang approach her with a cold smile on her lips. Chapter 2, Just a Tool for Marriage. Click. Just as Dr. Wang's hand touched Su Yan's, ready to inject her with a sedative, Su Yan immediately grabbed her right wrist and snapped it back. The syringe fell to the ground. Dr. Wang's hand, with a crisp sound, was instantly broken, dangling limp. Ah! My hand! Dr. Wang cried out in pain. Dr. Wang! The nurses were also shocked. This patient is crazy, not only hitting the nurses, but also breaking the doctor's hand. Seeing Dr. Wang's painful expression, Su Yan sneered. In her previous life, this unscrupulous doctor took her parents' money, acted against her will, and forced her to undergo a sex change operation. It was her dirty right hand that turned Su Yan into a monster who was neither man nor woman. She was justified in breaking her hand. The doctor's hand was broken by the patient, and the operating room was in chaos. Taking advantage of the chaos, Su Yan jumped off the operating table and walked out of the operating room. Outside the operating room, there was no one. For such an important operation, neither her parents nor her sister had come. They were so at ease, so sure that she was like a marionette, allowing them to manipulate her. Or, did they not care whether she was alive or dead? Su Yan sneered again. Yes, she was just a tool for them to climb up the social ladder. What was there to care about a tool? It was only natural that they didn't come. Su Yan slowly looked back at the door to the operating room. Her eyes were cold. In a previous life, it was from this operating room that her miserable life became even more miserable, falling into an endless abyss of darkness, with no way back. This time, she would control her own life. Su Yan clenched her fists. Su Yan returned to the ward, took off her hospital gown, put on her own clothes, and got her cell phone. As soon as she turned on her phone, a message popped up on her phone. Xia Yuan, Su Yan, as long as you take 100 photos of Fu Yanlin, I will agree to go out with you once. Xia Yuan? Her school beauty queen fiancé. The school beauty queen, who had always been so cold that she wouldn't even give her a glance, had actually taken the initiative to send her a message. Su Yan's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her lips. Her beautiful face was full of playfulness. This message was the same as in her previous life. As soon as she came out of the operating room, it was already in her inbox. In her previous life, she was forcibly operated on and had to stay in the hospital for 7 days. The first thing she did after being discharged from the hospital was to fulfill Xia Yuhan's wish. When she went to Xia Yuhan with the photos, Xia Yuhan's best friend immediately exposed her as a pervert who liked men and was a gay. Xia Yuhan used this as an excuse to go to the Su family to withdraw from the marriage. Because of the broken ribs, she was beaten by her parents and could not even crawl. They ordered her to leave the Su family forever if she could not reconcile with Xia Yuhan. She lay in the hospital for 2 weeks. Her parents and younger sister did not even come to see her. Before she was discharged, she was on the top floor of the hospital getting some fresh air when someone pushed her from behind. She fell from a height of more than 10 meters, hitting her head on the ground and instantly dying. Her limbs were broken, and blood and brain matter splattered all over the floor. Everyone who passed by screamed and ran away, covering their mouths. She lay on the cold concrete floor for 2 days and nights, covered only by a strange man's jacket. Her parents and sister had to go to the hospital to collect her body after being repeatedly urged and invited. But they just paid the money to take her directly to the crematorium, and didn't even want the ashes. Chapter 3, Handsome. Thinking of her past life, Su Yan closed her eyes tightly. This time, everything would be reshuffled. Su Yan opened her eyes and looked at the school badge on her body. Now, Su Yan is in the 35th grade of the Royal Ellis Noble Academy in Nanchang. It has only been a week since the start of the semester. There are only about 100 days left before the college entrance exam. This school is a noble school. The students in the school are either rich or noble, and everyone has money and a background. However, there are different levels of rich people. And Su Yan belongs to the lowest level. The Su family was once very prosperous. Now, the family has fallen on hard times. They are not qualified to enter this school. Su Yan was able to enter this school only because of her fiancé Xia Yuhan's family. Is this the way people run? Catch her. The sound outside the ward interrupted Su Yan's thoughts. Su Yan snapped back to reality and looked at the group of people outside the window, looking down on them with disdain. They think they can catch her? Su Yan climbed onto the windowsill and looked down. 6th floor. It's only a dozen meters high. Go! Break her hand. Dr. Wang chased after her with a group of bodyguards and nurses from the hospital. Her hand had already been fixed. But, she was still angry. Break my hand? Come over if you dare. Su Yan turned around, completely unconcerned. She even raised her eyebrows defiantly. She was a real pain in the neck. Go get her. Dr. Wang roared. Su Yan smiled contemptuously. Bye. She turned around, looked out the window, and jumped. The body falling at high speed gave Su Yan the illusion that she had been pushed down the stairs in a previous life. However, she landed safely. She was as light as a swallow. Her posture was cool. She stood up and gave a middle finger to the upstairs. Dr. Wang. She didn't die from the fall? Dr. Wang's face turned green with anger. Su Yan didn't stop, quickly climbed up the several-meter-high wall, jumped over it, and disappeared from everyone's sight. Her movements were cool and handsome. Wow, so cool! The nurse couldn't help but exclaim with starry eyes. Although she knew that Su Yan was a woman dressed as a man, she still thought he was so handsome and cool. This is the 6th floor. She jumped straight down like that, and she was fine. This is so cool. Handsome my ass. Dr. Wang glared at her fiercely. The little nurse. The top floor of the hospital. The dean's office. The boy stood by the window. The boy was wearing the dark blue school uniform of the Ellis Noble Academy. The boy has delicate and strong facial features, dark and narrow eyes, and his eyes are faint, giving people a sense of indifference and alienation. He was upstairs and witnessed it all. There was not much expression on his handsome face, but his eyes moved. Young master, I'll go check what's going on. The secretary hurriedly said. No need. Fu Yanlin waved his hand and picked up the textbook on the desk, telling my dad that I'm going to class. The secretary nodded repeatedly. Yes, young master, I will definitely tell the dean. Ellis Academy. Hey, that boy is so handsome. Why does he look a little unfamiliar? Is he a student at our school? Wow, he's really handsome. The way he puts his hand in his pocket is so cool. Is he a transfer student? Let's go take a look. Su Yan stood under the office of the Dean of Students. She tilted her head slightly and looked up at the white sky above the school. 1,000 years had passed. She was back. Several girls pulled her to Su Yan's side. Oh my god, isn't this Su Yan, who had a betrothal agreement with the school's most beautiful girl, Xia Yuhan? When did Su Yan become so handsome? It's him. Something seems different. What is it? Chapter 4, Boarding School. Betrothal agreement? Hearing their conversation, Su Yan slowly turned her head, her face full of frost. These 3 words made her feel extremely disgusted. It was these 3 words that doomed her to a tragic ending from the moment she was born in her previous life. 18 years ago. The Su and Xia families were both influential and powerful families in the South City. The 2 families were close friends, and when Mrs. Su and Mrs. Xia were both pregnant, they made a pact that if they gave birth to a boy and a girl, they would become in-laws. Originally, it didn't matter whether they would become in-laws or not. But then the Su family suffered a sudden disaster and fell into poverty, so they took this agreement, which was not really an agreement, as a lifeline. They publicized the marriage between the Su and Xia families everywhere. The Xia family could not bear to lose face, even though they had already looked down on the Su family. The Xia family's child was born first, and it was a girl. This meant that Su Yan must be a boy. Unfortunately, she was a girl. The deranged Su couple immediately decided to let her dress as a boy. At the right time, they would perform a sex change operation and turn her directly into a man. By marrying into the Xia family, they would firmly grasp the Xia family tree. There was no bottom line. Thinking about this, Su Yan's face turned even colder. Let's go. Seeing Su Yan's bad mood, the others dragged her away. Not wanting to be affected by negative emotions, Su Yan shook her head, her movements cool and handsome. Hey, she really is quite handsome. A girl said, turning back. Well, no matter how handsome she is, she's still the school flower. Su Yan went straight to the homeroom teacher's office. Teacher Zhang, I want to live in the dormitory. Can you please help me arrange a bed? Su Yan came straight to the point. That home. She naturally wouldn't go back. It wasn't her home, it was a cage. She wasn't a member of that family, she was a pawn. What they needed was a son who could help them marry into a wealthy family. But she was a daughter, so there was nothing she could do. Teacher Zhang adjusted his glasses. The college entrance exam is coming up soon, and your studies haven't caught up. It's better for you to live in the dormitory, so you can study more. I'll ask the registrar's office. Su Yan was silent. Was she behind in her studies? She was sitting comfortably in the last place. Fortunately, Mr. Zhang was a good teacher and didn't seem to have given up on her as a bad student. Half an hour later. Su Yan got the document for her dormitory assignment. Her life as a boarding student was about to begin. However, she was going to live in the boys' dormitory. She had been dressing up as a boy for more than 10 years, so she shouldn't be found out. Su Yan had nothing to worry about. Su Yan took the document and went to the dormitory office to check in. The dormitory teacher stared at the dormitory number on the document and was slightly surprised. 316? Su-Yen nodded. Yes, is there a problem? The dormitory teacher opened his mouth, hesitated to speak, and in the end, he didn't say anything, but just gave Su-Yen the bedsheets and bedding. Ellis is an aristocratic school. Not only is the entrance threshold high, but the learning environment is also quite good. The dormitory environment is comparable to a 5-star hotel. Each bedroom has its own bathroom, air conditioning, washing machine, refrigerator, computer, and TV. After all, the tuition is 1 million a year. Su-Yen found room 316, took the key and opened the door. Inside, the teenager heard a noise and slowly turned around, looking at her with cold eyes. After seeing the person in the room, Su-Yen was stunned. How could this be such a coincidence? The teenager was sitting at his desk, with the 3-year college entrance exam and 5-year mock exam in front of him. He was holding a limited edition pen in his well-defined fingers. He turned his head slightly, and his profile was very good-looking. The early spring sunshine shone in through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, bathing him in sunlight, but it didn't make him feel warm. Because his eyes were too cold. Chapter 5, Don't Disturb Me While I Study. Su-Yen froze. It was Fu Yanlin. Her classmate Fu Yanlin. Fu Yanlin, one of the 4 most popular guys at Ellis Noble Academy. He was known as a top student. Since the year he entered the school, he had always ranked first in the class in all exams, whether weekly, monthly, midterm or final. It was said that his family owned a chain of hospitals. He is rich, handsome, and has excellent grades. He is the school's most deserving school flower. This is not what Su-Yen cares about. Instead, her roommate is Fu Yanlin. On her phone, there is still a message from Xiubo asking her to take 100 photos of Fu Yanlin. They are now living in a dormitory, so this kind of thing is even more convenient, right? Now that Fu Yanlin is right in front of her, Su-Yen inexplicably feels a little guilty. No. What is she ashamed of? She doesn't have any improper thoughts about him. She has nothing to be ashamed of. Is there something wrong? Seeing Su-Yen standing at the door, the young man's voice was cold and indifferent. His voice was as cold as his eyes. But it was very nice to hear. Su-Yen came back to her senses, put her hand in her pocket, and her face under her black hair showed no expression. She shook the keys in her hand. Classmate, I'm your new roommate. Fu Yanlin frowned slightly when he heard the sound. He was very well-mannered and said nothing. The dormitory was very large, about 100 square meters. It was a 6-person room. There were 3 beds on the left and 3 on the right. It was very spacious. 4 of the beds were neatly covered with gray sheets issued by the school. 2 were empty. In other words, there were currently 4 people living in this dormitory, including Fu Yanlin. The bed on the left when you enter the door was empty. Su-Yen put the sheets and bedding she had brought in on it. At the moment, Fu Yanlin was the only person in the dormitory, and Su-Yan's other 3 roommates were not there. Fu Yanlin understood Su-Yan's intentions, and continued to read in his seat with his eyes lowered. Fu Yanlin was very famous at school because he was the school's most handsome boy. Su-Yen was also very famous at school. Everyone knew that she was the fiancée of the school's most handsome boy. Fu Yanlin was the top student in the 135th class. Su-Yen was the last student in the 135th class. They had become roommates. What a coincidence. Su-Yen had very little luggage. After she had made her bed, she planned to go out and buy some toiletries and blackout curtains. Although she was dressed as a boy, she was still a girl. Living with 4 boys. She had to create a private space for herself. She checked her phone and saw that she still had more than 100,000 yuan in her account. Her parents had ordered her to win over Xiubo in high school and get engaged as soon as she graduated. So they will give Su-Yen pocket money. After all, it costs money to chase girls. Especially a beautiful girl like Xiubo. Su-Yen looked at the balance with a blank expression. It was only a matter of time before she and her parents broke up. They would definitely limit her spending. She would have to find a way to make money on her own. Classmate, if you can't do it, I will apply to have the homeroom teacher transfer you to another dormitory. Su-Yen was staring at her phone when an A4 sheet of paper was handed to her. The fingers holding the paper were long and white, and it was clear at a glance that the owner of the hands was pampered. The boy with handsome features stood in front of her with cold eyebrows and eyes. Su-Yen took it. 1. Do not disturb me while I study. 2. Do not disturb me while I study. 3. Do not disturb me while I study. Fu Yanlin wrote 3 identical clauses. After Su Yan finished reading, she looked up at him. Chapter 6. Find a reason to get rid of him. Fu Yanlin only gave her a cold glance and turned back to his seat to continue reading. He wasn't discussing with Su Yan, he was informing her. He was very cold, but also very domineering. Su Yan. Disturbing his study? The superiority of the top student? Fu Yanlin, do you believe that I will take your first place in the college entrance exam in a few months? Su Yan directly crumpled the paper into a ball, then with a handsome gesture, the ball of paper shot in a parabolic trajectory, landing precisely in the black trash can 3 meters away. Su Yan raised her eyebrows slightly at the boy's tall and straight back. The boy sat in his seat, not moving, not making a sound. As if he hadn't heard Su Yan's words. Or perhaps he thought Su Yan was talking about the Chinese folktales and didn't want to respond. After all, isn't it a tall tale for the class's last place student to say he's going to take the first place in the grade? Su Yan smiled and left the dormitory with her phone and keys. After she left, Fu Yanlin looked at the trash can not far away and frowned slightly. It seems that I have to find a reason to get rid of him. Su Yan was buying daily necessities from the school supermarket and was about to go back to the dormitory when her phone rang in her pocket. Su Qin. Su Yan said the name without any warmth in her voice. This is her younger sister, 2 years younger than her. Su Yan frowned slightly, but she still answered the phone. Sister, did you run out of the operating room? Did you even break Dr. Wang's hand? What are you doing, sister? Don't you want to have the sex change operation? As soon as the phone was connected, Su Qin's accusing voice came through the receiver. Why, sister? Sister, I know you're upset, but you can't be so selfish. Mom and Dad were so angry when they heard you ran out of the operating room, Mom even fainted. If you don't change your sex, what about our marriage with the Xie family? Su Qin said, almost crying. It was as if Su Yan had done something outrageous. It was as if Su Yan had done something that had caused her great injustice. Su Yan listened to Su Qin's words, and her lips curled into a cold arc. What should I do? Su Yan said coldly, are the Su family all dead? Sister? Su Qin was obviously stunned. She could feel Su Yan's cold emotions through the receiver. Something's wrong. Su Yan never used to speak to her in this tone. What's going on? Su Yan, Su Qin, don't forget, you're also a Su family daughter. If I don't want to, there's still you, right? You're so great, why don't you go and marry the Xie family? Why don't you become a man and marry Xie Yuhan? Me? Su Qin was immediately anxious when she heard this. Sister. I'm still young. I'm 2 years younger than Xie Yuhan, how can I? Su Yan interrupted her, 2 years younger? It's only 2 years younger. Girls are 3 years older than boys, and you're holding half a gold brick, aren't you? Happy? Su Qin. Su Qin clenched the phone. Damn it. When did Su Yan become so sharp-tongued? How could she suddenly suggest that she become a man to marry Xie Yuhan? To become a man, that's disgusting. She doesn't want to. Su Qin said with grievance, Sister, don't make fun of me. It's you who has a marriage contract with Xie Yuhan, not me. You called me sister, how could Xie Yuhan and I have a marriage contract? When did our country allow women to marry women? Su Yan smiled with contempt. Su Qin. Chapter 7, a math problem that no one can solve. She couldn't argue with Su Yan, so Su Qin had to use her usual trick. She was extremely aggrieved and choked, Sister, why are you so mean to me? Did I do something wrong? Tell me, and I'll change, okay? In the past, whenever she said this, no matter what she had done wrong, Su Yan's attitude would immediately soften. However, Su Yan, your existence is wrong. Can you die? Su Qin. How can Su Yan say such a thing to her? Is she a crossdresser and has her mind gone crazy? Su Qin burst into tears. Sister, how can you say such a thing to me? Su Yan's expressionless face, I can say whatever I want. Pretending to be a white lotus? She has seen more white lotuses in the world of fast-forwarding than she can count on both hands. Who does she think she is? Su Qin. Su Qin was silent for a long time, unable to get through to her sister emotionally, so she had to get down to business. Sister, Mom and Dad are really angry with you. Su Yan didn't respond, but instead asked, "My dear sister, do you remember what day it is today?" Su Qin blurted out, "Isn't today the day you're having surgery?" Ha! Su Yan sneered. She was being a bitch for asking. Su Qin didn't want to argue with Su Yan anymore, so she said, "Sister, you must come home early today. We'll be waiting for you at home." Humph. Su Yan dared not disobey and have the operation. When she got home, she would see how her parents would punish her. "Sorry, I live in the dormitory and I'm busy." "Live in the dormitory? Sister, why did you suddenly live in the dormitory?" Su Yan was too lazy to talk nonsense with her, so she cut off the call and conveniently added Su Qin's number to the blacklist. Su Yan went back to the dormitory to put her things away. Fu Yanlin was no longer in the dormitory, and the other 3 roommates had not returned. Su Yan hung a curtain on her bed. It was time for evening study. Su Yan had nothing to do, so she went to the classroom to get familiar with it. The last time she entered the classroom was more than 1,000 years ago. It had been so long that Su Yan took the wrong path with her textbooks. She inexplicably walked into the mathematics research room. Ellis College is not only an aristocratic school, it is also a school that places great emphasis on teaching quality. The school's rate of advancement to higher education is the highest in the country. Each subject has its own dedicated building. Su Yan held her textbook in one hand and stared at the unsolved math problem on the blackboard. This classroom is a special challenge room. The blackboard will list all kinds of very difficult math problems. If someone solves it, a new problem will be added to the board. Fu Yanlin is a math genius. He has never scored less than 140 points on a math exam. He has solved most of the problems on this blackboard. However, this problem has been on the board for almost a month and is still there. In other words, even Fu Yanlin can't solve this problem. Su Yan holds a textbook in one hand and her other hand in her pocket, looking cool. She stares at the blackboard and a smile creeps onto her lips. Lazy and confident. She walked straight over, picked up the chalk, and slowly wrote down the solution. "Oh, Yuhan, just keep me company. Fu Yanlin likes to come here the most. We can bump into him here." As soon as Su Yan put down the chalk, she heard voices coming from the classroom door. Chapter 8, I'm sorry, I don't have a crush on you. Su Yan turned around and saw the 2 people at the door. Her eyes, which had originally been cold, immediately turned cold. There were 2 girls standing at the door. One was tall, white, and beautiful. She was wearing a blue school uniform. The hem of the large school uniform was tied in a knot by her delicate hands, wrapped around her small waist, making her waist appear to be less than a handful. The school uniform skirt was also specially lifted up, revealing a pair of straight and thin legs. At first glance, she is stunning. The other one is a little shorter, but she is also quite pretty. However, she looks very ordinary when compared to the girl with long legs. These 2 people are her school flower fiancé Xiubo and her good friend Tianmi, right? Su Yan. Why are you here? Tianmi also saw Su Yan, and her face immediately showed contempt. This guy has no family background, no talent, is a bad student, not tall, and only has a barely passable face. He actually has the audacity to want to marry Xiubo, who is beautiful and rich. He's really a toad trying to eat swan meat. Su Yan didn't pay any attention to Tianmi, and only glanced at Xiubo lazily, holding her textbooks and about to leave. Stop. Tianmi stopped Su Yan. Did you take the pictures you wanted to take? Photos? Su Yan raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Xiubo. Xiubo's pretty face showed no expression. When she saw Su Yan looking at her, she frowned slightly. Like Tianmi, Xiubo was very annoyed with Su Yan. She did not recognize the engagement between her and Su Yan. Every time Su Yan saw her, she would act like she was trying to please her, as if she couldn't wait to get close to her. However, she was not Tianmi. She is still somewhat well-mannered. Even if she doesn't like Su Yan, she won't show it to her face and embarrass Su Yan. She just looks at people coldly, as the high and mighty school beauty. Didn't you get the text message? Tianmi looked at Su Yan condescendingly. As long as you take 100 photos of Fu Yanlin, Yuhan will go on a date with you. Su Yan glanced at Xiubo with a half-smile, and then her gaze shifted to Tianmi. I'm living in the same dorm room as Fu Yanlin now. Really? So you can take as many pictures as you want? Tianmi's face was full of excitement. You're right. Su Yan nodded in agreement. On me, then hurry up and take the pictures. I want them tonight. However, Xiubo blew out a strand of hair in front of his forehead and said, "Young master, I'm busy, I don't have time to take your pictures." After Xiubo finished speaking, he raised his hand and poked On me with the textbook in his hand. She's a little bit of a neat freak. She doesn't like to touch people directly, especially people she dislikes. On me was pushed back 2 steps. She angrily said, "Xiubo, you've grown some skills? You don't want to take pictures of me, and you don't want to go on a date with Yuhan?" Xiubo turned around and glanced at Yuhan. "I'm sorry, I don't plan on having a high school crush." On me? No early love? Has this kid changed his mind? He used to be glued to Yuhan every day. What is he doing now? Xiubo added, "Also, I don't like girls who are older than me, and I especially don't like girls who are so outstanding that they have A-cup breasts." On me? Does this mean that she dislikes Yuhan? Yuhan's beautiful eyes were almost round with shock. I will take. Time to go to the Xie family to cancel this so-called arranged marriage as soon as possible. Seeing Yuhan looking at him, Xiubo said directly. After that, he didn't care about Yuhan's reaction and walked away directly. Chapter 9, it was Yuhan who broke it off. Yuhan's face turned white with anger. She wasn't angry that Xiubo wanted to break off the engagement. Breaking off the engagement was exactly what she wanted. What she was angry about was that no girl would like someone to describe herself as old, especially a young girl in her teens. Although, she is indeed more than a month older than Xiubo. What makes Yuhan even more angry is that Xiubo actually dislikes her flat chest. Yuhan is almost perfect, family background, studies, figure, appearance. Except that she has a flat chest. Nowadays, it is fashionable to be thin and young. She is a goddess who fully conforms to the public aesthetic. What right does Xiubo have to dislike her? Xiubo's few words killed without bloodshed. On me was also stunned. This is not right. In the past, Xiubo would lick Yuhan's face when he saw her. How dare he make a sarcastic remark about Yuhan today? Seeing that Yuhan's face was not looking good, On me comforted her, "Yuhan, don't pay any attention to him. He's definitely playing hard to get. Yes, he's doing it on purpose, trying to get your attention." "Shut up." Yuhan bit her lip in humiliation. On me. Cut it out. What Xiubo said is true. Yuhan is indeed older than Xiubo and has flat breasts. Why take it out on her? Xiubo walked out of the math lab with her textbooks. She ran into the cold-looking boy. Xiubo was thinking about something and didn't notice. The boy saw her, but didn't expect her to run straight into him. Ouch! Xiubo's nose hit something hard and it hurt. She let out a cry of pain, took 2 steps back, and steadied herself. The cold boy instinctively raised his hand and grabbed her wrist, afraid that she would fall. The textbooks in Xiubo's hands scattered all over the floor. The person who came was no one else. It was her roommate Fu Yanlin. Fu Yanlin saw that she had steadied herself and let go of her hand, frowning slightly. "Don't you look where you're going?" Fu Yanlin was 185 centimeters tall, and Xiubo was 174 centimeters tall. He looked down on her condescendingly. His expression was cold, making him seem very superior. Xiubo retorted, "Did you see the road?" Fu Yanlin frowned a little more, and his dark, narrow eyes only glanced at Xiubo lightly. He was a cold-tempered person who didn't like to argue with people. Without getting too entangled with Xiubo, he walked into the classroom sideways. Xiubo didn't care either, and bent down to pick up her textbook. She patted the dust off it. Yuhan and On me were about to leave, but they saw Fu Yanlin come in. Yuhan's expression was indifferent. Although Fu Yanlin was a good student, good-looking, and from a good family, he was not her type. His personality was too cold. On me was so happy that she wanted to jump up. But she didn't dare to show it too obviously, so she pretended to be reserved. "Classmate Fu, what a coincidence." Fu Yanlin looked at the two of them coldly and walked straight into the classroom. He looked up at the blackboard and froze. The next moment, he walked quickly to the blackboard and stared at the math problem that had already been solved on the blackboard. There was a flash of fire in Fu Yanlin's usually cold eyes. Solved it? Someone actually solved it? He turned around excitedly and looked at Xiubo and Tianmi, who solved this problem. Xiubo? Xiubo looked at the blackboard. Sure enough, the problem had been solved. Fu Yanlin was the top student in his class, and Xiubo was second. Her grades were also very good. Sometimes, she could solve the problems on the blackboard too. This time, no one had solved the problem on the blackboard for more than a month. Xiubo thought no one would solve it. Tianmi, Miss Fu Yuhan solved this problem. Chapter 10, Who is it? Tianmi saw the sparkle in Fu Yanlin's eyes and was shocked. She quickly realized that this was an opportunity. Tianmi of course wanted to take the credit for herself. However, she was a bad student. She told Fu Yanlin that she had solved the problem. Fu Yanlin definitely didn't believe her. Xiubo was also a top student. It would be very convincing if she said she solved it. Sure enough, as soon as she finished speaking, Fu Yanlin immediately looked at Xiubo, and his eyes were full of warmth. Xiubo. Xiubo looked at Tianmi in surprise. How could she say such nonsense? Just as Xiubo looked at Tianmi, Fu Yanlin's gaze slowly fell on her hands. Xiubo had very beautiful hands. They were fair, long, and clean. Fu Yanlin's gaze fell on the half-chalked blackboard, and his eyes immediately turned cold. Xiubo's hands were so clean that they didn't look like they had just held chalk. Lied to him? Think he's stupid? He turned around and ran out of the classroom. That person should still be around. However, the hallway was empty. Who was it? Who solved the problem? Fu Yanlin's chest was filled with excitement, and his heart was pounding. Fu Yanlin left. He was going to check the surveillance camera. Xiubo frowned. Tianmi, what are you talking about? I didn't solve that problem. Tianmi was unhappy when Fu Yanlin left. She didn't deny it either. Xiubo. She just hadn't had time to deny it yet. She didn't want to take credit for something she didn't do. Su Yan found the classroom of Class 35. Ellis Academy adopted an elite teaching method. There are 16 classes in the high school. 8 arts classes and 8 science classes. There are 36 students in each class. Class 15, where Su Yan is a science class and at the same time, the best class in the science department. Su Yan was delayed in the math lab for a while, and it was almost time for evening study. At this time, most of the students in the classroom had already arrived. As the last student in the class, her seat was in the last row. Everyone else had 2 desks in a row, but she had 1 desk all to herself. Su Yan sat down and opened her math book. She had already memorized the knowledge in the textbook. Suddenly, the boy in the front row slammed her desk, knocking the textbook to the ground. Oh, is it raining red rain? The last one in the class is reading a book? Ha ha ha, that's funny. The boy laughed exaggeratedly, looking down on her. Su Yan stared at his face, which she wanted to slap, and memories from over 1,000 years ago gradually became clear. The boy in front of her was Wang Tao, Xiubo's admirer. Therefore, he had a lot of hostility towards Su Yan. He always found fault for no reason. Probably, he wanted to replace Su Yan as Xiubo's fiancée. Su Yan's eyes grew cold, and her thin lips uttered 3 words, "Pick it up." Wang Tao froze for a moment, then burst into a loud laugh. What did you say, you sissy? Can you speak louder? You sound like a woman. You're lucky to be Xiubo's fiancé, but you're still a joke. Wang Tao's face was close to Su Yan's. Su Yan knew that he was unruly, so he didn't want to waste any more words with him. Su Yan raised his hand and pressed his head against his desk, his palm pressing hard. Ah! Su Yan, what are you doing? Let go of me. Wang Tao screamed in pain. He tried to break free, but no matter how hard he tried, Su Yan's hand was like a big rock pressing down on his head, making it impossible for him to move. It hurt like hell. Damn! This sissy usually looks so weak. Where did he get such strength? Chapter 11, Pick it up. The students turned their heads to look at the 2 of them when they heard the noise. They saw that Wang Tao, who was much taller than Su Yan, was being held down by Su Yan, who was half a head shorter than him, on the desk. What's more, Su Yan was holding Wang Tao down with one hand. Her face, with its short hair, looked a little lazy, as if she wasn't even trying. But Wang Tao couldn't move. The students were stunned. No way. Su Yan actually overpowered Wang Tao? Hasn't he always been bullied by Wang Tao? A rabbit will bite when it is desperate. It must be Wang Tao who has gone too far. How dare Su Yan provoke Wang Tao? He will be in big trouble later. Su Yan ignored the comments and said coldly, "Are you going to pick it up or not?" "I'm not going to pick it up." Wang Tao didn't expect Su Yan to hold him down. He felt humiliated and naturally wouldn't give in. Su Yan's face was expressionless. "I'll give you one more chance. I'll count to 3. I'm not picking it up." Wang Tao was still very stubborn. 2. Su Yan suddenly increased the strength in his hand. Wang Tao suddenly felt a sharp pain in his skull, as if his entire head was about to be crushed by Su Yan. "Pick it up." "I'll pick it up." Wang Tao immediately gave in. Su Yan pulled his lips, and the face under his short black hair showed a mocking look. "If you had done so earlier, it would have been over. You had to make things difficult for yourself." Su Yan immediately let go of his hand. "I'll pick it up for you." As soon as Su Yan let go, Wang Tao immediately raised his hand and punched Su Yan. Wang Tao is a tall guy of 1.8 meters, and he likes to play basketball. His body is in good shape, and his strength is naturally great. "Ah!" The surrounding classmates couldn't help but exclaim. Even some timid female classmates covered their eyes in fear. However, Wang Tao's fist was firmly caught by Su Yan. Her fingers were slender and long, and her palms were not small. However, compared to a real man, her hands were very small. Her fingers could not even completely hold Wang Tao's fist. However, this did not affect her unilateral suppression of the opponent. Su Yan's 5 fingers were strong, and the sound of the bones cracking came from Wang Tao's fist. "Ouch, I'm wrong, ancestor, I'm wrong." Knowing that he was no match for Su Yan, Wang Tao completely gave up. Su Yan let go of his hand, and Wang Tao dared not try anything again. He obediently picked up the textbook he had deliberately knocked over. The look in his eyes changed from arrogant and contemptuous to cautious. All this happened in just a minute or two. Wow, Su Yan is so handsome. He looks so thin and skinny, and not as tall as Wang Tao, but he has so much strength. Oh my god, how come I didn't realize Su Yan was so handsome before? Su Yan didn't pay any attention to the comments. He just sat quietly in his seat, took out the disinfectant wipes from his bag, and wiped his fingers that had touched Wang Tao over and over again. When Fu Yanlin walked into the classroom, he heard the students praising Su Yan. Fu Yanlin's cold eyes glanced at the back row of the classroom. He checked the surveillance camera and saw that only Su Yan, Xiaoyuan, and Tianmi had been in the classroom that evening. If it wasn't Xiaoyuan and Tianmi, then it must have been Su Yan. But that was impossible. Su Yan was a bad student. He was the worst in the class. He would rather believe that a dog had done it than Su Yan. Su Yan felt Fu Yanlin's gaze and looked up slightly, meeting the boy's eyes. Chapter 12, Love Yourself. Su Yan read confusion in the boy's eyes. But she didn't care. Su Yan quickly looked away, threw the used disinfectant tissue into the trash can, and opened her textbook. Fu Yanlin also sat down. He also took out his textbook and opened it, his brows slightly furrowed. He must find that person. The first class of the evening study session was math class. The math teacher, Mr. Ding, was a man in his early 50s. He walked into the classroom with a spring in his step, carrying his lesson plan, and looked at his favorite student, Fu Yanlin. "How did you solve that problem?" Before Fu Yanlin could answer, the other students looked at him with admiration. "Wow, you solved that math problem that had been there for over a month? You're so amazing, Fu. You're a math genius. You're my idol." Su Yan sat in the last row, playing with a pen in his hand, looking at Fu Yanlin straight back with a lazy expression. "Sorry, teacher," in the midst of all the chatter, Fu Yanlin said coldly, "I didn't solve that problem." Teacher Ding was stunned, and immediately asked excitedly, "Not you? Then who? Is there a hidden math genius in their class?" Fu Yanlin shook his head, "I don't know." Teacher Ding's eyes immediately swept over the students present. "Which one of you did it? Raise your hand. Class 15 is a top class. All the students with good math skills in the entire grade are in this class. If it wasn't Fu Yanlin, then it must have been one of the other students." Teacher Ding looked at the students with anticipation. However, no one raised their hand. "It wasn't you guys?" Teacher Ding was a little disappointed. Could it be a sophomore or a freshman? That would be too embarrassing. A problem that the third-year students couldn't solve was solved by the first and second-year students. It was a great shame. Seeing Mr. Ding's disappointed expression, Fu Yanlin stopped twirling her pen. She propped her head up with one hand, and the diamond stud in her right ear glistened in the light. She looked lazily at Mr. Ding and then at Fu Yanlin's back. In fact, she should have raised her hand. But no one would believe her if she did. The last one in the class can solve a math problem that even the top students in the class can't solve? Isn't that a tall tale? This math problem, if you went to a 985 or 211 university, you probably wouldn't be able to solve it. Fu Yanlin was able to solve it easily because she had traveled through the fast-forward world and had a lot of skills. Therefore, it was inappropriate for her to raise her hand. There were only 3 months left before the college entrance exam. Fu Yanlin planned to make a little progress. She would improve a few places in each exam, so that it wouldn't arouse suspicion. By then, if she got a good score in the college entrance exam, everyone would accept it more easily. Teacher Ding was a little disappointed, but quickly got herself together and went over the key points and difficult areas with the students using her lesson plan. This question will definitely be on the college entrance exam, even if it's not exactly the same question, it's the same type of question. Fu Yanlin continued to twirl her pen, looking lazy. It was already 10 o'clock at night when the evening study session ended. Instead of going straight back to her dormitory, Fu Yanlin went to the school's cake shop. She bought herself a small, exquisite cake for 198 yuan. Today was her birthday. Her 18th birthday. After today, she would be an adult. No one remembered her birthday, so it didn't matter. She would celebrate it herself. No one loved her, so it didn't matter. She would love herself. Fu Yanlin sat in the school's small flower bed, lit a candle, took the first bite of cake, and whispered, "Happy birthday." Fu Yanlin loved sweets. In no time, she had eaten most of the cake. Fu Yanlin glanced sideways at the boy who had been standing behind her for a long time. "Do you need me?" Chapter 13, is this something she can see? Fu Yanlin felt Fu Yanlin's approach the moment he got close. The other person didn't say anything, so she pretended not to know. Now she was going back to the dormitory, so she took the initiative to speak. Fu Yanlin, who had been silent, spoke coldly, "Have you been to the math challenge room this afternoon?" Fu Yanlin heard the sound and turned in a different direction, facing the boy. She sat down, and Fu Yanlin stood up. Fu Yanlin looked up and looked at the boy. The orange streetlight hit the boy's young and handsome facial features, as if a layer of shallow golden light had passed over them. It's quite good looking. The school's most handsome boy is the school's most handsome boy. In terms of appearance, he will not disappoint. What? Fu Yanlin nodded and asked in return. Fu Yanlin didn't beat around the bush. What for? Fu Yanlin smiled, her smile a bit sassy. "To see my fiancé? Any questions?" The light hit her diamond earrings, the halo was scattered, and Fu Yanlin couldn't see her expression. Fu Yanlin frowned slightly. "Have you seen who solved that math problem?" Fu Yanlin paused for 2 seconds and shook her head. "No." Fu Yanlin confirmed, "So, it wasn't you?" After asking this question, Fu Yanlin felt like he was crazy. Fu Yanlin's grades were the lowest in the class. Her ranking in the grade was also the lowest. Every time an exam was taken, her class average score was dragged down a lot. Especially in math. She couldn't even get the multiple choice questions right. With a total score of 150, she can only get a few or 10 points. The math teacher, Mr. Ding, is always angry when he corrects her papers. If it weren't for the homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang, who was nice, Fu Yanlin would have been kicked out of class 15 a long time ago. He would have to be crazy to ask Fu Yanlin if she did that math problem. However, when he checked the surveillance camera in the hallway today, he saw only Fu Yanlin and 2 other people enter the classroom. There is no surveillance camera in the classroom. Fu Yanlin scooped a spoonful of cake into her mouth and smiled. "What do you think?" Fu Yanlin. Fu Yanlin was silent for a few seconds and then turned and walked away. Fu Yanlin smiled at his tall back. "If you don't even believe it yourself, why ask me?" I don't know if Fu Yanlin heard her, but the teenager's footsteps quickened. Fu Yanlin finished the cake and threw the box in the trash. She got up and stretched contentedly. Her small waist, hidden by the loose school uniform, was exposed, and in the light, it was almost luminous. Fu Yanlin had a great figure and skin, but it had always been hidden by the loose school uniform, and no one knew. Fu Yanlin returned to dormitory 316. The lights were on in the room, but it was empty. The school uniform jackets were scattered on the single bed across from her. Su Yan keenly heard the sound of water coming from the bathroom. Her roommate was taking a shower. Su Yan thought for a moment that she should say hello to her roommate on her first day. So when she heard the sound of the shower, she immediately turned her head to look. The moment she looked, she was dumbfounded. The man came out of the steamy shower. He was tall and had dark hair like ink. He wore gold-rimmed glasses that covered his narrow eyes. His hair was still dripping from the shower, and the water droplets fell down his handsome face and onto his muscular chest. The black bathrobe was loose and hanging off his body, revealing his 8-pack abs, which had a charming color under the light. His waist also looked extremely powerful. Su Yan. Is this what she can see? Is this what she can see for free? Cough. Su Yan was choked by her own saliva. Chapter 14, Si Junzuo. Although this is a boys' dormitory, it is not uncommon for boys to come out of the shower with their chests bare. Moreover, the man in front of her is wearing a bathrobe, but he hasn't fastened the belt. Although she has been dressing as a man for 18 years, this is the first time she has seen a man so directly. Su Yan immediately turned her head away and looked away. New roommate? Si Juanzu's voice was full of laughter, and he came toward Su Yan with one hand wiping his wet hair. He was lazy and had an innate elegance and dignity. The scent of the lemon-scented shower gel on his body was very nice. He politely said hello, I'm Si Juanzu. As Si Juanzu spoke, his lips curled up slightly as a habit, but his eyes under the gold-rimmed glasses were not very warm, but rather contained a fox-like cunning. Hello, Su Yan. Without looking at him, she quickly said, Classmate Si, I'm Su Yan. I'm new here, so please take care of me. After she finished speaking, she was stunned again. Si Junzuo. He's in the 3rd year of high school. He's in the same class as Xia Yuhan. Goodness, another school flower? There are 4 school flowers at Ellis Noble Academy. When they were first selected, these 4 schoolboys had the most supporters, and it took a long time to decide the winner, so in the end the judges decided to let them all sit together. What kind of luck is this? She's living in the dormitory for the first time, and she's living with 2 schoolboys. Take care of me? Si Juanzu's lips curled up. As long as you don't provoke Xiubo, it's fine. Su Yan didn't dare to look at Si Juanzu, but Si Juanzu was calmly sizing her up. His new roommate wasn't tall, but he wasn't short either. But she was very thin. Her little arms and legs were so thin that they seemed like they would break if you squeezed them. Her face was very delicate under her short black hair, her skin was very white, and her eyelashes were especially long, and in the faint light, there was a faint reflection on her eyelids. And her lips, light pink, were very nice, and they were actually shaped like flower petals. I heard that this kind of lip is especially suitable for kissing? Cough. Anyway, he was a handsome guy. He doesn't lower the average appearance of the dormitory. Su Yan. Xiubo? Another school grass? Xiubo, this is a particularly difficult master. The students would rather offend the teacher than offend him. His character is so bad that if it weren't for his good looks, he might have been beaten up by the crowd. Su Yan didn't expect his 3rd roommate to be him. There are already 3 school grasses. Could it be? Su Yan looked up and her gaze fixed on Si Junzhao's handsome face. Mr. Si, who is the other roommate? Su Yan stared at Si Junzhao. Si Junzhao's facial features were very delicate. The gold-rimmed glasses on his nose made him look very refined, but his narrow eyes revealed his shrewdness. Although he was still a high school student, he was already an adult and had the charm of a mature man. 4 words popped into Su Yan's mind: refined scum. The other one is Ling Yushin from the 30th grade. Refined scum, said Si Junzuo. Su Yan came back to her senses. Ling Yushin? The 4th school flower, Ling Yushin? Well, that's it. No wonder the dormitory teacher had a look of wanting to say something when she saw her receipt. She was living with the 4 school flowers. What kind of luck is she having? Si Juanzu nodded. Ling Yushin is not in good health, and he often stays in the hospital, so he rarely comes to the dormitory. Su Yan nodded. She knew this. Ling Yushin is a mixed-race person, with incredibly deep and beautiful facial features, and with his amber-colored eyes, he can charm a lot of girls just by smiling. However, he is not in good health and takes medicine all year round. He is often not at school. At this time, Fu Yanlin pushed the door open. Chapter 15, If you're so capable, then pee in your pants. Seeing the two chatting, Fu Yanlin ignored them. He was completely immersed in his own emotions. He was cold, his brows slightly furrowed, and he sat down at his desk with his textbooks in his arms, not saying a word. Fu Yanlin thought he must find out who solved that math problem. But what method should he use to get that person to come to him? Fu Yanlin, he is relatively introverted. Xiubo tapped Fu Yanlin, who was silent, with his beautifully chiseled chin. Su Yan nodded. I know, we are in the same class. Xiubo climbed onto the single bed, leaned against the headboard, and picked up a copy of The Evolution of Lawyers in his hand, carefully flipping through it. Su Yan went to the bathroom to take a shower. In the bathroom, the scent of the lemon that Xiubo had washed was still lingering. Su Yan turned off the light and carefully checked the bathroom for hidden cameras with her cell phone camera. She is a girl after all, so she has to be careful in this regard. Fortunately, there was nothing unusual. Su Yan turned on the hot water and started to take a shower. Although the whole space was filled with the scent of a boy, she was a little uncomfortable, but there was nothing she could do. She would have to spend more than 3 months with them. Get used to it. However, when Su Yan was halfway through her shower and covered in bubbles, the bathroom door suddenly slammed. Open the door. I need to go to the bathroom. Outside the door, the man's voice was extremely arrogant. Xiubo, my new roommate is taking a shower, so wait a moment. Was said. I can't wait. Xiubo continued to pound on the door, impatiently. Su Yan frowned. Wait a moment, I'll be right out. Everyone has to go to the bathroom sometimes, and she understood that. But Xiubo's attitude made Su Yan very unhappy. She had heard about Xiubo's prickly personality. But Su Yan wasn't intimidated by him. Open the door now. Hurry up. Xiubo continued to pound on the door. Su Yan was getting angry. I'm taking a shower. What's wrong with that? You're a grown man, you can take your shower and I can take mine. What are you so worried about? Xiubo didn't think so. Su Yan's face turned completely serious. If you're so capable, you can just pee in your pants. Xiubo was furious at the sound, and he slammed the door. Where did you come from, you little bastard? Are you looking for death? Su Yan looked at the door that was shaking from the force of the slamming, and she was worried that he would break it. She quickly washed the foam off her body, wrapped herself in a thick bra, and put on cotton pajamas. She covered herself up in long clothes and trousers. Outside, Xiubo's patience seemed to have run out. As soon as Su Yan opened the door, he raised his hand. Oh, it's a pretty boy. Are you looking for death? Xiubo saw that the boy in the bathroom was thin and pale, and immediately gave Su Yan the nickname Pretty Boy. A cold flash passed through Su Yan's eyes. This kid owes a beating. However, before Su Yan could take action, Xiubo's wrist was grabbed by a powerful finger. The one who grabbed Xiubo's wrist was none other than Xiubo. Xiubo, what's going on at this hour? Xiubo's handsome face showed a hint of impatience. The pupils under the gold-rimmed glasses were already cold. Although Xiubo was arrogant, he was not without sense. He knew very well that the person he most feared in this dormitory was Xiubo. This guy looked gentle and refined on the surface, but in fact. Xiubo glanced at Xiubo and calmed down a bit. He stared coldly at Su Yan and ordered, Get out of here, quickly. Chapter 16, I'm trying to sleep. Su Yan stared at Xiubo. The man had short black hair, and only a very high level of beauty could withstand this casual hairstyle. His facial features were extremely tough, handsome with a strong sense of aggression, and he was not a good guy to mess with. It was a very handsome face, but it also made Su Yan unable to resist the urge to beat him up. But it was late at night, and Xiubo came to break up the fight, so Su Yan didn't want to argue anymore. Su Yan ignored Xiubo and walked straight out of the bathroom. Xiubo hurried into the bathroom and slammed the door shut. Su Yan said to Xiubo, Thanks. Xiubo waved his hand and said, It's nothing. Don't pay any attention to him. Su Yan's lips curled into a shallow smile. She never expected that on her birthday, the person who gave her warmth was Xiubo, whom she had just met. Of the 4 roommates, Su Yan has the best impression of Xiubo. Xiubo looked at Su Yan's slightly twitching lips, and for some reason, his palm fell on her furry head and rubbed it. Su Yan. Xiubo withdrew his hand very naturally. Good night. Good night. Su Yan climbed into bed and pulled the curtain, and her small bed became an enclosed space. The first night in the boys' dormitory. Su Yan thought she would be unable to sleep. But she slept very well. She had no dreams that night. She woke up when she heard someone getting up. She checked the time on her phone and saw it was only 6 o'clock. It was still dark outside at 6 o'clock in the morning in early spring. The lights in the school had already been turned on. First morning reading class, 6:50. The door was gently opened and a few seconds later, it was closed again. Su Yan was about to sit up when the single bed suddenly shook violently. Su Yan? Su Yan frowned slightly and was about to lift the curtain to find out what was going on. The curtain was violently lifted by someone. White face. That's enough. As soon as you entered the dormitory, you knew to find Si Junzuo as your backer. Don't think that because you have Si Junzuo protecting you, I won't dare to move you. Si Junzuo had already gotten up and gone for a run. Gu Xiubo came to Su Yan's room first to make trouble. Gu Xiubo was wearing an exaggerated cartoon pajama set, his face was solemn, and he looked at Su Yan with disdain. He was standing on the ground. Su Yan was sitting on the bed. He looked up at Su Yan, but all he could see was a shaggy head. After sleeping all night, Su Yan's short hair was a little disobedient, slightly cocked up, messy and lazy. Gu Xiubo could only see her beautiful side face. Although Su Yan has been dressing as a man for many years, her facial features still have a feminine quality. She is somewhat delicate. Gu Xiubo was stunned. How could she be so feminine? She looks like a woman. Get out. Su Yan turned her head, and the diamond stud in her right ear glowed coldly. Gu Xiubo. Get out? There are not many people in the world who dare to tell him to get out. This pretty boy doesn't seem to want to mess around anymore. Get down here. Gu Xiubo was furious. Su Yan held onto the railing with her palms, jumped up in a cool manner, and landed very easily. She crossed her arms and pushed the stray hairs on her forehead back with her hand, looking a bit sassy. What do you want? She asked Gu Xiubo impatiently. Gu Xiubo had never expected his new roommate to be so disrespectful. Su Yan is the most inconsiderate person he has ever met in his life. Gu Xiubo pinched his fingers, clicking. Kid, do you know what will happen if you offend me? If you kneel down and beg me now, I can still look at the face of Si Junzuo. Su Yan. Gu Xiubo. You are disturbing my sleep. Please go out and quarrel. A cold voice interrupted Gu Xiubo's words. Chapter 17, A Man's Way of Solving Problems. The teenager was lying in bed. Qingjuan's face was slightly angry from being woken up, and his eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Gu Xiubo glanced back at Fu Yanlin. If you don't like the noise, go out yourself. Why should we go out? Fu Yanlin. A flash of disgust flashed in Fu Yanlin's dark eyes. However, he did not refute Gu Xiubo. It's not that he's afraid. It's disdain. Fu Yanlin is a top student. Gu Xiubo, like Su Yan, was a failure at school, failing every subject. The top students always looked down on the failures. If it weren't for Su Yan and Gu Xiubo's constant bickering, he wouldn't have bothered to deal with them. They were like summer insects, incapable of understanding ice. Fu Yanlin got up, got out of bed, and went straight into the bathroom. Indeed, he should move to a different dormitory. It was bad enough that they had argued last night, but they were still arguing early in the morning. How can he study? Fu Yanlin interrupted, and Su Yan walked straight to the sink and started brushing her teeth. Gu Xiubo followed her. He leaned against the doorframe with his arms folded, staring at Su Yan. Do you have a habit of watching people brush their teeth? Su Yan, with foam in her mouth, glanced at him. Gu Xiubo sneered. Kid, you don't think I'm going to let this go, do you? You've offended me, understand? After rinsing her mouth, Su Yan replied, being a middle schooler is a disease that needs to be cured. Gu Xiubo. He was furious and grabbed Su Yan by the back of her neck. He intended to teach her a lesson. However, the next moment, Su Yan turned her hand around, breaking free of his control, and then pressed his hand against the wall with all her might, causing him to press his whole body against the wall. His tough facial features also changed shape. Ah! Gu Xiubo screamed in pain. Su Yan quickly let go of his hand. Su Yan's movements were so fast that Gu Xiubo thought the pain he felt was an illusion. He stared at his palm in a daze. Su Yan picked up her school uniform and sat on a chair, waiting for Fu Yanlin to come out so she could go in and change. She casually picked up the disinfectant wipes on the table and carefully wiped her fingers that had just pinched Xiubo's arm. "What did you just do to me?" Xiubo walked angrily to Su Yan's front. Su Yan looked up impatiently. "Do you have to hold on to me? Kid, you offended me, understand?" Xiubo poked Su Yan's shoulder with his hand. Su Yan slightly turned her body, and his finger missed. She didn't like being touched. Su Yan looked at him coldly. "So you want to solve it in a man's way?" "What? The man's way?" Xiubo stared at Su Yan's delicate, white face. He couldn't help but laugh arrogantly. "Little white face, want to fight? With your little body, can you take a punch from me?" "Su Yan, I'm sorry, I don't fight." She was afraid of crippling him. She didn't usually fight. Xiubo raised his chin. "So how do you want to solve it?" At this time, Fu Yanlin came out of the bathroom. Su Yan got up and left a message: "Meet at the school playground at 10 p.m. He sneered, "Whoever doesn't show up is a dog." Although he didn't know what Su Yan meant by the man's solution. No matter what it was. Xiubo, had never been afraid of anything since he was born. The first morning reading class was English class. Su Yan sat in her seat and stared blankly. She knew all the words and grammar rules by heart, so there was no point in looking at them again. The phone in her desk lit up the screen over and over again. Su Yan turned on the mute. Su Yan wanted to take the phone to check the time, only to find that there were 8 missed calls. It was Su Yan's father calling. Without thinking, she knew what he was calling for. A puppet who had been raised and brainwashed for 18 years suddenly had a sense of autonomy and refused to listen to them. Chapter 18, It's Better to Raise a Dog Than You. After all, without Su Yan, the Su family would have no one to rely on. In the future, the Su family would not be able to walk as smoothly as they had in the past. Just as Su Yan was thinking about whether or not to return the call, the phone rang again. Su Yan accidentally pressed the answer button. "Su Yan. Su Yan. Why didn't you come home last night? And why did you suddenly refuse to have sex reassignment surgery? How dare you hit the doctor? Have you grown up? Have you become capable?" As soon as the call was connected, a middle-aged man's angry voice came through the receiver. Su Yan put the English textbook upright and held the phone to her ear. With a cold face, she listened quietly to the other person venting. "Su Yan, after I have raised you for so many years, is this how you repay me? Do you have the Su family in your heart, or do you have me as your father? I gave you life, and you're not even willing to do this little thing for me? I'd rather raise a dog than raise you. I'm telling you, if you dare not change your sex and marry Xiubo, get out of the Su family right now." Su Yan had heard these words many times before. In her previous life, her parents had always used these arguments to bully her. As they wished, she obediently played the role of a man for 18 years. She even gave up her pride and became Xiubo's lapdog. So that the Su family could use the Xie family's name to negotiate business deals. Her sacrifice allowed the 3 of them to live a comfortable life. It wasn't until the moment of her death that she realized that they had raised her as a tool. A tool to help the Su family climb the social ladder. The debt of gratitude they owed her had already been repaid the moment she died in her previous life. Su Yan lowered her voice. "Are you done?" Su Yan lowered her voice. "Are you done? Are you done?" What is this reaction? Usually, as long as he scolds Su Yan, Su Yan will immediately be obedient. Do whatever she is told to do. Why is she acting like this now? Su Qin said that Su Yan seemed to have changed, and he didn't believe it, but now he did. But, the person he had controlled for 18 years wanted to get out of his control. Su's father said coldly, "You get your ass home right now. I've made an appointment for you to have surgery at the hospital at 2 p.m. Su Yan is already an adult. She is also about to graduate from high school. Therefore, the marriage with the Xie family must be finalized as soon as possible." "I'm busy," Su Yan said coldly. "I'm in class, so I'm hanging up." After Su Yan finished speaking, she ended the call unilaterally. To avoid being disturbed again, she turned on airplane mode. As soon as Su Yan put down her phone, she saw her English teacher walking towards her. Su Yan's eyebrows twitched. She thought to herself, "This is not good." She quickly reached into her drawer with one hand to slide open her phone, and slowly placed her English textbook down with the other. Wang Tao in the front row immediately complained, "Teacher Wang, Su Yan is playing with her phone in class. She has absolutely no discipline." Wang Tao had been embarrassed by Su Yan yesterday, so he didn't dare to pick on her again. But, when he got the chance to get back at Su Yan, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Su Yan gave Wang Tao a cold glance at the back of his head. It seems that this kid didn't learn his lesson yesterday. Teacher Wang had already walked up to Su Yan's desk and asked with a stern face, "What were you doing just now?" The English teacher was a young girl. Although young, she was very responsible and strict. Su Yan said, "Teacher Wang, I was looking up words on my phone." "What words?" Wang Tao interrupted Su Yan excitedly. "I heard you talking on the phone. My deskmate heard it too." Wang Tao elbowed his deskmate, trying to get a confirmation. "Did you hear it too?" Chapter 19, The Rich Are Stupid. The boy sitting next to her hadn't said anything yet. Su Yan placed her phone on the desk, and on the screen was the word series she had been looking up. Wang Tao's eyes widened. "No way. Check the call history." He clearly heard her. Su Yan was on the phone. Wang Tao grabbed Su Yan's phone and opened the call history. However, the last entry was from the afternoon of the previous day. "Wang Tao, how is this possible? There's nothing? Did Su Yan delete it? No way. How could she delete the call log and open the tool for checking words at the same time in just a few seconds? Even a god couldn't do that fast." Su Yan's lips curled into a sneer. "How could it not be possible? I didn't answer the call." "But you heard it." "Classmate Wang, did you get hallucinations from looking at the color website on your phone during class?" Wang Tao. As soon as Su Yan's words fell, the students burst into laughter. Wang Tao's face immediately turned red. "Su Yan, don't slander me, I didn't." "Oh, really?" Su Yan propped her head up with one hand, her posture lazy. With the other hand, she quickly reached into Wang Tao's pocket and took out his phone. Coincidentally, the page was a scene that was hard to look at. "Teacher Wang, take a look." Su Yan placed the phone on the table. "Teacher Wang." Teacher Wang is a girl after all, and her face turned red quickly. But she had seen it. Wang Tao hurriedly took back his phone, tried hard to close the page, but it opened more. "Wang Tao. Wang Tao. Go to the guidance office immediately and write a self-criticism." Teacher Wang roared. "Su Yan. I'm the one who." Wang Tao was exposed on the spot, and he was so angry that his face turned red and his neck swelled. Su Yan propped up her head and looked at him lazily. "What? Are you going to tell on me like a little kid? She can do that too. And she's better at it. Get out." Teacher Wang roared. Wang Tao glared at Su Yan angrily. Under the pressure of the teacher, he had no choice but to go out. Su Yan pulled her lips. She's dirty herself, and she still dares to tell on her. "Ha! Do you think Su Yan is handsome?" a girl whispered. "I just saw her smile. How come I think she looks better than school hunk Fu Yanlin when she smiles? She looks good even when she doesn't smile." "Are you saying that Su Yan is always better looking than school hunk?" Fu Yanlin was sitting in the third row. The best place to see. Hearing the murmurings of his classmates, he turned and glanced at Su Yan. Su Yan's facial features were exquisite. Her short, jet-black hair made her already fair skin even whiter, and her pretty, petal-like lips were a light pink, as if she had just applied lipstick. It was an extremely feminine, handsome and good-looking face. But, it was just skin deep. The most useless thing a man could have is a good-looking face. What's more, Su Yan was a bad student. Someone who can't even handle the simple task of studying, what else can they do in the future? Fu Yanlin quickly withdrew his gaze and continued to read the words he had already memorized. During the morning break, Su Yan heard the students in front of her talking. "Oh my god, no way. 100,000 yuan for a question? Fu Yanlin is so rich." Fu Yanlin did this to find the student who solved the problem yesterday. He really is willing to spend a lot of money. The top students appreciate each other. "You know, that guy yesterday, why didn't he come forward? What's the point of hiding the fact that he can solve math problems?" Su Yan was about to fall asleep on the table, but when she heard the conversation, she immediately perked up. "Excuse me, did you say that Fu Yanlin gave 100,000 yuan for solving a math problem?" "Yes, don't you think he's too rich?" the student on the right said. Su Yan smiled. Well, he's stupid and rich. Su Yan was worried about how to make money after she broke up with the Su family. Well, someone is offering her money. One question is worth 100,000 yuan. She can solve it until Fu Yanlin goes bankrupt. No. The Fu family is so rich. They won't go bankrupt. She's not that greedy. She just wants to earn enough to live on. After the college entrance exam, she'll find another way to make money. Chapter 20, She's Not Sick. After the morning classes were over, the students went home or to the cafeteria. Su Yan, however, walked single-handedly towards the math research room. Eating is more important than making money. She went to see what kind of problem Fu Yanlin had left on the blackboard. First, she would earn him 100,000 yuan. The teenager walked in the crowd. At 1.74 meters tall, he was not outstanding among high school students, but there was some kind of magic about him that made everyone's eyes fall on him. The beautiful androgynous face often does not disappoint those who look at him. Hey, look! He's so handsome. Really, he's really handsome. What grade is this handsome guy in? Xiaoyuan listened to everyone's discussion and couldn't help but look curiously at Su Yan through the crowd. After seeing that the person everyone was talking about was Su Yan, she was slightly stunned for a few seconds. Handsome? Is Su Yan handsome? After staring at Su Yan's face for a few seconds, she had to admit that Su Yan's face was indeed worth looking at. Unfortunately, she had already fallen in love with someone else. In any case, the marriage with Su Yan must be cancelled. Su Yan felt Xiaoyuan's gaze, raised her eyes and glanced at her, and quickly withdrew her gaze coldly. As if she had only seen a stranger. Xiaoyuan. Xiaoyuan was slightly surprised. Usually, Su Yan would cling to her as soon as she saw her. It was annoying. But since yesterday, she seemed to have changed. She was much less cold to her. If she could take the initiative to withdraw the engagement at the Xie family, she wouldn't have to think about it. The college entrance exam was coming up soon. Xiaoyuan planned to confess to the person she liked after the exam. She didn't want Su Yan to be an obstacle. Just as Xiaoyuan was thinking about 1,000 things, Su Yan had already disappeared. As soon as Su Yan reached the door of the math lab, she received a call from her homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang. Su Yan, come to my office right away. Su Yan had no choice but to turn around and go to the guidance office. Su Yan thought that Mr. Zhang was looking for her for something. When she arrived at the office and saw the person, Su Yan immediately understood. Su Yan's father was sitting in a chair, looking dignified and imposing, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, like a successful man. When he saw Su Yan enter, he looked at her sideways, speechless. When Mr. Zhang saw Su Yan, he stood up and looked at her with a gentle expression. Su Yan, if you are sick, you should go to the hospital. Don't be stubborn. You can study better after you get better. I will give you a week's leave. Go back with your father. Su Yan. She is not sick. She didn't expect her father to play dirty tricks with her. She ignored him and used the homeroom teacher to pressure her. Unfortunately, she was no longer the puppet who let them do whatever they wanted in her previous life. Su Yan looked at Su Yan's father. Su Yan's father was calm and composed, acting like an elder. Su Yan had not called out to him when she entered the room. He had not paid any attention to Su Yan either. Su Yan looked at the homeroom teacher and said in a lazy tone, Teacher Zhang, I am in good health. I am not sick and do not need to take a leave of absence. You must have the surgery right away. You are not sick? Su Yan's father immediately retorted. The surgery is scheduled for this afternoon. He came to take Su Yan to the hospital. This surgery must be done. The sex change surgery must be done 3 times to be completely successful. If it's not done today, then when? When will Su Yan truly become a man? When will the Su and Xie families become real in-laws? He can't wait any longer. Su Yan looked at Su Yan with a smile on his face but a cold heart. Dad, tell me what disease I have. Chapter 21, The Homeroom Teacher's Favoritism. Su's father. Su's father had never expected Su Yan to turn the tables on him. For a moment, he was speechless. After all, he couldn't say in front of Teacher Zhang that he was taking Su Yan to get a sex change operation. Teacher Zhang was a very wise man, and seeing Su's father's reaction, he frowned slightly. Was there something else going on? Of course, Mr. Su knew that Mr. Zhang was looking at him, He thought quickly and said, rhinitis. Yes, you have rhinitis and you need to have surgery as soon as possible. Su Yan pulled the corner of her lips and her eyes were cold. Dad, are you too old to remember things well? Su Yan's voice was calm. Isn't it my sister Su Qin who has rhinitis? Mr. Su. Is this little girl determined to go against him? Su Yan's father glared at her and immediately corrected himself. Oh, I remembered it wrong. It's hepatitis. Hepatitis? Su Yan raised her hand. Her skin was as white as porcelain. I remember that people with liver problems have yellowish skin. Su Yan's father. Teacher Zhang finally frowned and said, Mr. Su, you don't even know what your son has? Su Yan's father. Mr. Su's face immediately turned sour. Although the Su family had fallen on hard times, they were still quite well off, thanks to the Xie family. Now, he was being questioned by a middle school teacher. He felt humiliated. Mr. Su said coldly, Su Yan, what are you talking about? Come back with me right now. I'm sorry, Mr. Su, but I suddenly remembered that I have an important exam this afternoon, and Su Yan can't miss it. Let's talk about it after school tonight. Teacher Zhang said. Mr. Su. Mr. Su wanted to say something else, but Mr. Zhang made a gesture to invite him to come in. This is a school. As long as the teacher does not agree, Mr. Su has no way to take Su Yan away. Mr. Su had no choice but to glare at Su Yan viciously, stood up and left the office. Su Yan's lips were smiling lightly. Mr. Zhang, I'm going to see my dad off. On the school's boulevard. Most of the students were in the cafeteria, and there were only a few people on the road at this time. Su Yan's father looked terrible, and he walked quickly. Su Yan had her hand in her pocket, and a pleasant smile on her pretty face under her black hair. Su Yan's father suddenly stopped, turned around, and grabbed Su Yan's wrist. Su Yan, come back with me. You must have surgery this afternoon. Let go. Su Yan's smile faded a little. Su Yan's father heard the commanding tone in Su Yan's words, and he angrily said, What tone are you using to talk to me? Su Yan's expressionless, Mr. Su, although the Su family is down and out, you are still a boss. Is it appropriate to be seen at school with your daughter? Su Yan's father. Su Yan's father did not expect to be lectured by a little girl. His face became even more unpleasant. Su Yan's father coldly said, Don't play with me. You must come back with me. Su Yan's expression turned cold. Mr. Su, if you don't let go, I'll scream. How about I let everyone know that you forced me to marry Xie Yuan? What do you think Xie Yuan would do if she knew I was a girl? When dealing with a rascal, there's no need to talk about rules. Now that no one else is around, Su Yan has hundreds of ways to deal with Su Fu. Su Yan's words hit Su Fu right in the heart. Su Fu. Sure enough, as soon as Su Yan's words fell, Su Yan's father immediately let go of her. Su Yan's father gritted his teeth. Su Yan, you should be grateful that I don't have a whip in my hand right now. Su Yan's expression grew cold at the sound. In the past few years, whenever Su Yan showed any signs of resistance, her mother would first try to persuade her with kind words. If Su Yan didn't listen, all she had to look forward to was her father's whip. Her younger sister Su Qin, on the other hand, was their favorite child, and they would do anything for her, not even daring to say a harsh word. Su Yan looked at her father with contempt. So what if you have a whip? Do you dare to beat me to death? Su Yan's father. Chapter 22, Keep it a secret. Su Yan's father frowned and looked at her for a long time. What's going on? Su Yan seemed like a different person. A few years ago, Su Yan also had a temper tantrum and refused to dress up as a boy. But her father suppressed her. Now, the young man in front of him seemed completely out of his control. Could it be that she knew something? Impossible. Su Yan quickly dismissed the hypothesis in his heart. Su Yan felt Su Yan's stubbornness and dared not anger Su Yan. He snorted and left. Su Yan pulled her lips and turned directly back to the homeroom teacher's office. Teacher Zhang was still waiting for Su Yan. Su Yan said sincerely, Thank you, Teacher Zhang. You always like good students. I didn't expect that you would treat a bad student like Su Yan the same way. That's really commendable. Teacher Zhang respected Su Yan's privacy and didn't ask what had happened between Su Yan and her father. He patted Su Yan on the shoulder and said, As long as you are in school, I will protect you. Su Yan was very grateful and said, Thank you. It is a blessing to have a good teacher when you are a student. Su Yan went to the cafeteria for a quick lunch and then went straight to the library. There was a 2.5-hour break at noon, and students could spend it as they wished. Alice's library was huge, with 6 floors and more than 1,000 square meters on each floor. There were millions of books in the library, and they were of all kinds and in all subjects. There were also reading areas, rest areas, and computer areas. Su Yan went straight to the computer area. The computers in the library can be used for free. During the break, Su Yan saw that her classmates had already taken a photo of the math problem Fu Yanlin had written on the blackboard and sent it to the group chat. Although the classmates came from good families, 100,000 yuan was a small amount for them. However, earning 100,000 yuan from a single problem was very rewarding. Everyone was eager to try. However, there was a chorus of groans in the group chat. It's too difficult, right? Who can solve this problem? Sure enough, the school's 100,000 yuan is not so easy to earn. I'm completely in the dark. I'm good at math, but I can't understand this problem at all. However, for them, a difficult problem, Su Yan only glanced at it and already had an idea of how to solve it. Su Yan opened the computer and in less than a minute, he solved the problem, then made a fake email address to send the answer to Fu Yanlin, and attached a string of bank card numbers, waiting for Fu Yanlin to send the money. Room 316. Fu Yanlin closed the exercise book and was about to take a break. He was alone in the room and it was quiet. His phone vibrated. He picked it up and opened it. It was a new email alert. Fu Yanlin opened his mailbox and his expression of surprise appeared on his face, which had been emotionless. The email he received was no other than the math problem he had solved in the math challenge room during the break. He had solved it. Fu Yanlin knew how to solve this problem. It took him a week to solve it after studying it repeatedly and finding many previous examples. But this person solved it in just a few hours? So amazing. Who is he? Fu Yanlin quickly replied to the email, "Who are you?" However, the next moment reminded him that the email address did not exist. Fu Yanlin? He looked closely and saw that the email address column was already a mess. This was set up by Su Yan. She didn't want Fu Yanlin to know that she solved it for the time being. After all, if Fu Yanlin knew it was her, he might suspect it. She was too lazy to explain. She simply kept it a mystery. Chapter 23, take a look. Ding. Su Yan waited 5 minutes and then received a text message from the bank. Perfect. Su Yan snapped her fingers. It was so easy to make 100,000 yuan. The ancients were right, there really is gold in books. Su Yan cleaned up the traces of her activities on the computer, turned it off, got up, and planned to read a book. It was still early before class. Su Yan was on the 2nd floor. The higher she went, the more profound and complicated the content of the books became. Su Yan walked straight to the 6th floor. There were quite a few people on the lower floors, but there was no one on the 6th floor. Su Yan put her hand in her pocket, her bangs hanging down in front of her face, her porcelain white face expressionless. She lifted her hand to take down a book and looked at it with lowered eyes. Opposite the bookshelf. While Su Yan was taking the book on the other side was taken down by a palm with clearly defined joints. The middle of the bookshelf was empty. From this side, you could see the other side. The man across from her looked over with a penetrating gaze. The first thing he saw was the dazzling diamond stud in the boy's right ear and his overly handsome profile. Su Yan? Si Junzuo was stunned. He didn't expect to see Su Yan here. The books on this floor were all business and practical books that had long surpassed the scope of high school. Even college students might not be able to understand them. Therefore, there are very few people on this floor. Why would Su Yan, a school dropout, come here? If he was not mistaken, Su Yan was holding a professional book on advanced programming. Su Yan heard the sound and looked up, her dark eyes looking at the man. Si Junzuo was wearing the school's blue school uniform, his shoulders wide open, making the uniform look crisp and stylish. The eyes behind the gold-rimmed glasses looked like they were smiling. Like a deep-thinking old fox, but also elegant and noble. You're here too, Mr. C? Su Yan's lips curled into a smile. For the first man to give her warmth since her rebirth, the impression was very good. Si Juanzu shook the programming book in his hand. I came to read. Why, are you interested too? Si Juanzu's lips curled into his usual smile, but his eyes were indifferent. Su Yan said, take a look. Su Yan suddenly remembered that Si Juanzu had a deep understanding of computers. According to rumors, Si Juanzu was admitted to the computer science program at the top university without taking the exam because of his outstanding computer skills when he was in the 10th grade. His classmates were envious. But Si Juanzu directly refused. He was not interested in that. He wanted to be a lawyer, I heard. Si Juanzu said, "There's a seat over there. Do you want to go over and take a look?" Su Yan nodded, okay. Su Yan sat down, and Si Junzuo put down his books. "What would you like to drink?" He pointed to the self-service beverage machine next to him. "I'll get it myself." "I'll help you." Su Yan stood up, and Si Junzuo was just about to pass by her. The two of them bumped into each other. Su Yan's shoulder hit Si Junzuo's arm. Si Junzuo had been exercising for many years, and his arm muscles were hard. Su Yan was knocked backwards, and she instinctively grabbed something, directly grabbing the corner of Si Junzuo's school uniform. Si Junzuo reacted quickly and quickly raised his hand to hold her shoulder. "Are you okay?" "It's okay." Su Yan pressed down on the table to stabilize her body. Si Junzuo looked at her dark short hair and couldn't help but rub it. "I said I'd help you. What do you want to drink?" "Okay." Su Yan sat down. "Coffee, please." Soon, Si Junzuo returned with 2 cups of coffee. One was pushed in front of Su Yan. "Thank you, Si Junzuo." Su Yan smiled. Si Junzuo took a sip of coffee. "If you don't mind, you can call me Wuga like them. I'm the 5th child in my family. I should be older than you." Chapter 24, quite good. Si Junzuo was confident that he was older than Su Yan. He was born on September 1st. He was a year late for school. Most of his classmates were in their 2nd year. He was already 18 and a half. Many of his classmates were still underage. Most of his classmates were younger than him. Su Yan thought for a moment with his coffee cup in his hand. 5th brother? Isn't that a bit too intimate? But, it's better to follow the rules than to be respectful. 5th brother. Su Yan called out. Si Junzuo smiled, and his narrow eyes behind the gold-rimmed glasses also narrowed with pleasure. He said, "I find you quite obedient." Su Yan. Su Yan put down the coffee cup and retorted, "The word good is not suitable for describing a man." Si Juanzu smiled. His knuckle-jointed fingers opened the book in front of him. As soon as he opened a page, his cell phone rang. Si Juanzu glanced at it. It was Fu Yanlin. He slid to answer it and turned it directly to speakerphone. He didn't treat Su Yan as an outsider. "Where are you, 5th brother?" Fu Yanlin got straight to the point. Judging by his voice, he sounded a little anxious. This was not his usual cold demeanor. Si Juanzu glanced at Su Yan. "Are you in the library? Do you need me for something?" "Fu Yanlin, 5th brother, I want you to help me track down someone." Si Juanzu, "Who is it?" Fu Yanlin, "Yesterday, someone solved the math problem I left behind, but I don't know who it is, so I came up with a way to put out the news that whoever solves a problem will get 100,000 yuan. Half an hour ago, that person solved my new problem. But the email address he gave me is garbled, and I can't find anything using the bank card number he left behind. Brother Wu, you're good at computers, can you help me check it out?" Si Junzuo said, "I can, but I don't have a computer on hand." Fu Yanlin, "But I'm in a hurry, can you come back to the dormitory?" Su Yanshan, who had been drinking coffee with her eyes lowered, kindly reminded, "There is a computer on the 2nd floor." "Who are you with?" Fu Yanlin heard Su Yan's words. Si Junzuo, our new roommate, Su Yan. 5th brother, I'm coming to the library to find you now." Fu Yanlin said. "Okay." Si Junzuo ended the call. He asked Su Yan, who was looking down at her book, "Are you coming down?" "Okay." Su Yan nodded. She also wanted to know if Si Junzuo could track her down. Her hacking skills were also good. The two went downstairs together. Su Yan was holding a programming book in her hand. They waited for 4 or 5 minutes in the computer area on the 2nd floor, and Fu Yanlin came. Fu Yanlin was panting. His usually cold face was also slightly flushed from running. However, it did not affect his handsome appearance, but rather made him look more lively. Because of his arrival, several girls looked at him in surprise. Fu Yanlin. So handsome. The girls whispered. Yanlin, over here. Si Juanzu waved his hand. Wow, Si Junzuo is here too. Both of the two campus darlings are here. What kind of luck do I have today? Hey, look, the boy next to Si Junzuo is also very handsome, with rosy lips and white teeth, and his skin is so white, he looks so clean. Is this the handsome guy from the thick-faced group? The girls whispered to each other. Fu Yanlin had already walked up to Si Junzuo and Su Yan. He glanced at Su Yan coldly. Can I sit here? Su Yan slightly raised her eyebrows and gave him her seat. Fu Yanlin sat down next to Si Junzuo. He calmed down a bit and logged into his email to show it to Si Junzuo. Seeing Su Yan standing next to him with her arms folded, he turned around and frowned at Su Yan. Don't let her see it? Okay. Su Yan made a gesture and sat across from Si Junzuo, facing away from the computer. Chapter 25, Isn't she man enough? Si Juanzu looked serious, and his slender fingers flew over the computer keyboard, playing the piano beautifully. The pupils behind the gold-rimmed glasses were full of seriousness. Su Yan waited with interest for Si Juanzu's results. Si Juanzu's brows gradually tightened, and the more they tightened, the more they formed a faintly shaped character. Fifth brother, what do you think? Fu Yanlin asked curiously. Staring at the computer screen, Si Junzuo said, This person is very cunning. The email address is fake, but the bank card number is real, but it's not his. The 100,000 yuan you transferred was immediately transferred in batches, and it was transferred tens of thousands of times, with LPS all over the world. He's too cunning to be found. Fu Yanlin was disappointed. Did you find nothing? Si Junzuo shook his head. That's not to say that I didn't find anything. Fu Yanlin asked anxiously, What did you find out? Si Junzuo, I found out that his original LP was at our school, which means that the person could be anyone at our school. After a pause, Si Junzuo said, It's not necessarily a student. Not a student? Fu Yanlin frowned. However, after thinking about it, he felt that Si Junzuo made a lot of sense. Since Fu Yanlin entered the school, no one has been able to match his grades. Especially in math. Moreover, it seems that this person is also a very powerful hacker. Even a hacker as powerful as Si Juanzu can't track him down. You can imagine how powerful that person is. How could such a powerful character be a student? After hearing Si Juanzu's conclusion, Su Yan's lips were smiling. Very good. I couldn't find her. From then on, she could rest assured of earning Fu Yanlin's money. However, she didn't plan to earn much, just enough to cover living expenses. However, Si Juanzu was really good, and he was able to find her approximate location. Si Juanzu said again, Yanlin, this time the time gap was too long, it was half an hour, so it was difficult for me to track him. Next time, when he contacts you, tell me immediately, and I will try again. Fu Yanlin nodded, Okay, I will immediately go find the math problem board on the blackboard. Wait for that person to contact him. Fu Yanlin came in a hurry and left quickly. Su Yan looked at Fu Yanlin's back as he left, his finger tapping his forehead, and his lips curled up. So you want to know who she is? She's not going to let him know. Si Juanzu turned off the computer and looked up to see Su Yan. Si Juanzu was stunned for a few seconds. He thought to himself that this kid really looked good when he smiled. What are you smiling at? He pushed his gold-rimmed glasses on his face. Su Yan's lips pressed down a little, and he asked in return, Am I smiling? Si Junzuo got up, It's a very sweet smile. Su Yan. Very sweet? Isn't that a description of a girl? Isn't she man enough? Su Yan was on her way back to class with her textbooks. Su Yan's mother called. Su Yan was so annoyed. Did the whole family have to torture her one by one? Couldn't they all come together? Su Yan hung up the phone. Who knew that Su Yan's mother called again? Su Yan stopped in her tracks, stood under a ginkgo tree, and picked up the phone. Yan, you finally answered your mother's call. Su Yan's mother's voice was gentle and full of worry. Su Yan's lips twitched in mockery. If it weren't for the fact that she had died and watched her own corpse lie under the hospital building for 3 days and 2 nights, with no one to collect it, she might really believe that Su Yan's mother loved her. Su Yan's voice was cold. What do you want with me? Yan, are you angry with your mother? Chapter 26, Stop Acting. Mother's voice was full of tears. Salt, I don't want to make it difficult for you to have a sex change operation. I know it's cruel to you, but you know that in this family, your father makes all the decisions, and there's nothing I can do about it. Salt impatiently interrupted her. Dad makes all the decisions in this family, so you're so lowly that you don't even have the right to call me? What? Mother was stunned. She didn't know what salt meant. Su Yan said coldly, Mom, do you remember what day it was yesterday? Yesterday? Su Yan's mother quickly exited the call interface to check the calendar. Yesterday was your birthday. Salt, Mom knows that last night Mom waited for you to come back to celebrate your birthday, but you didn't come back and you even blocked your sister's number. Oh, really? Su Yan smiled. She thought she would believe it? Excuses. It was all excuses. In her previous life, she had been forced to remove her breasts and lie on a hospital bed, suffering great pain in both body and mind. She had spent her first day of 18 years old alone in a hospital room. Not even one person had said happy birthday to her. Later, her mother had also given a hypocritical explanation. It was not the first time that her mother had neglected Su Yan. After each incident, she would blame her father. Su Yan always believed that she had a good reason. But now she thought about it, what reason? Her mother didn't love her at all. She was not like this with Su Qin. She had seen how she loved Su Qin, so she knew that her mother didn't love her. Now that her mother was using the same old tricks to win her over, Su Yan just found it all very funny. Very funny. Her mother didn't know that Su Yan hated her, and she was still playing the role of a good mother. Yes, Yan, I bought you a big birthday cake, the one you like. Okay, now send me a picture of you holding the cake, right now. Yan said coldly. Mother. Mother choked. There was no cake. Where could she take a picture? Why is this little brat so persistent today? Usually, Su Yan couldn't be dealt with by Su Yan's father and Su Yan's mother. Su Yan's mother would always use a soft tone of voice to calm Su Yan down. Why is she so stubborn now? Su Yan's mother was silent for a few seconds and said, Yan, your father was very angry when you didn't come home last night and smashed the cake. I'm sorry, Yan, that I couldn't even protect your birthday cake. She still tried to put the blame on Su Yan's father. It's an old trick. Su Yan's patience was running out. Okay, Mrs. Su, stop acting. You're not very good at it. What's the matter? Mrs. Su. Su Yan, I'm hanging up if you don't tell me. Wait, Yan, you're angry, but you're not going to leave home, are you? Can you come home tonight? Mrs. Su said softly. Su Yan wanted to refuse, but then she thought of something and changed her mind. I'm not free tonight, but I'll come back at the weekend. Okay, Mom is waiting for you. Su Yan's mother said gently. Su Yan's lips curled up coldly. Wait for her? Okay. Wait for her well. She will definitely give them a big surprise. After hanging up the phone, Su Yan returned to the classroom. The students were still discussing how the math problem had been solved. I really didn't expect it. There is actually a better student than Fu Yanlin in our school. He is really low-key. But Fu Yanlin always gets first place in every exam. That person is not that great, I guess he just got lucky. It's not luck to be able to solve such a difficult math problem, that's definitely a sign of strength. Chapter 27, Avoiding Me? Su Yan looked expressionless, with one hand in his pocket, and walked straight to the back row, sitting down in his seat. Wow, Su Yan is even more handsome now, isn't he? He's really handsome. I finally realized what was different. It was his temperament. Before, Su Yan had a stooped posture, but now he was standing tall with his head held high, and his eyes were full of confidence. In the midst of their chatter, Su Yan opened the programming book she had borrowed from the library. Her fingers lightly tapped the cover page. Her parents wanted her to marry Xiubo. Wasn't it all about wealth and glory? Why should she be attached to someone else's body? She, Su Yan, wanted to create her own business empire. There were still 3 months before the college entrance exam. She didn't have to worry about her studies. Even if she didn't get the top score in the exam, she could still get into a good university. She wants to use these 3 months to earn her first pot of gold. What will she do? Su Yan thought quickly while twirling her pen. Teacher Zhang, the homeroom teacher, walked into the classroom with a lesson plan. Classmates, the second mock exam of this semester will be held next Monday. Everyone, work hard and don't let your youth go to waste. Encouraged by teacher Zhang, the students were full of energy. Su Yan looked up at teacher Zhang. In this mock exam, she could improve a few places in the class. And 100 places in the whole school. She wanted to slowly show her strength. 10 p.m. The evening study session was over. Su Yan sat lazily in her seat, working on a physics exam. Although she knew how to do it. But she had to show something. Let everyone see that it was her hard work that had steadily improved her grades. The students left the classroom one after another. Hey, pretty boy. Are you hiding from me? The back door of the classroom was kicked open arrogantly. The handsome but extremely annoying face of the man appeared at the door. Wow! It's Xiubo. He's so manly. He's so fierce, run. It must be Su Yan who has offended him, run, don't hurt the innocent. Soon, there was no one left in the classroom. Xiubo walked into the classroom, stopping in front of Su Yan. He stepped on the chair in front of Su Yan and looked at Su Yan with slanted eyes. Little white face, now you know to be afraid? You were very powerful this morning, weren't you? Extremely arrogant. Su Yan put down his pen, collected the exam papers, and looked at Xiubo with dark eyes. I heard that you were a student with special physical education skills? Are you good at running and basketball? Xiubo raised his chin. It's not hearsay, it's a fact. Su Yan slightly pulled his lips. So confident, dare you bet with me? Xiubo, no problem. He was so arrogant that he didn't even ask Su Yan what to bet on or how to bet. Su Yan snapped his fingers. That's quick. Xiubo said disdainfully, don't be so indecisive like a woman, just say it, how do you want to bet? Su Yan, didn't anyone tell you that there is a kind of medicine in this world that can make people mute? Xiubo grabbed Su Yan by the collar. Are you looking for death? Su Yan pushed his hand away. Don't get physical. If you don't want your hand, I'll forget I said it. Xiubo laughed. Okay? Little white face. I finally met someone who was more arrogant than me. Say, what do you want to bet on? Su Yan said, bet on what you are good at, basketball or running, you choose one. The loser, get out of 316. Chapter 28, Something. Su Yan looked at Xiubo with a provocative look. Xiubo was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was pampered from a young age. He must have been a little tyrant at home. So he was arrogant at school. He didn't provoke her, so Su Yan didn't care. Since he provoked her, she would teach him how to be low-key. She would also let him know that there are people outside and there are people outside. Hey! Xiubo's handsome face showed an exaggerated smile. I'm better at this than you. Get out of 316? Little white face, you're already dreaming as soon as it gets dark? Su Yan's words made Xiubo feel very funny. However, he didn't expect that Su Yan, who looked so white and delicate, was actually a tough nut. Interesting. Do you dare to promise? Su Yan was too lazy to play with his words. Strength speaks for itself. Little white face. Xiubo raised his hand and tried to slap Su Yan's face, but Su Yan blocked it with one hand. Su Yan looked indifferent. Don't touch me, I'm warning you again. Cut it out. Do you think I want to touch you? Xiubo withdrew his hand and said, what's the bet? Su Yan, I've changed my mind. Xiubo looked disdainful. Are you afraid to bet? You're not acting like a man. No wonder Xia Yuhan doesn't like you. Su Yan ignored him and said, I just asked you to choose one thing, and now I've decided that we can compete in running and basketball. Xiubo sneered, you really aren't afraid of death. These are all areas he excels in. Su Yan insists on competing with him in these two things. He really doesn't have a brain. But how do you decide the winner in two events? Xiubo touched his chin, paused, and then said, my young master will definitely win you without a doubt, so there is no need to compare the third event. Su Yan smiled and stood up from her seat. Let's go to the basketball court first? Let's go. Xiubo raised his chin. Su Yan put her hand in her pocket and went out first. Xiubo, you're short, but you have a cool back. Su Yan. Short? She is 174 centimeters tall, even for a boy, she is not short, okay? She thought about it carefully, whether or not to turn this guy into a mute. The two of them arrived at the basketball court. The early spring night was still cold. The orange lights illuminated the dark night sky. The boys on the basketball court were running hard in short sleeves, as if they didn't know the cold. The girls also gathered around the court, cheering excitedly when someone scored a goal. The smell of youth. The basketball court was huge, but there was no empty space. Xiubo walked directly to the best position, folded his arms, and said coldly, "Stop, this court, I need it now." His tone was unmistakable. The boys saw that it was Xiubo who had come to take over the court. Although they were unhappy, they obediently gave it up. Xiuyan frowned slightly and said to the boy who was leading the way, "Excuse me, I'll take a few minutes." "How do you compare?" Xiubo asked. Xiuyan threw out 2 words, "Shoot." "Give me the basketball." Xiubo waved to the people on the side. "You first." Xiubo threw the basketball to Xiuyan. Xiuyan caught it with one hand. Xiuyan took the basketball and went directly to the 3-point position. "3-point shot?" Xiubo raised his eyebrows slightly. "Does this kid have something? What is this? What are you comparing? Basketball? This person is going to compare basketball with Xiubo? Are you crazy?" The onlookers were talking about it. Xiuyan seemed to have not heard these words, and still with one hand in his pocket, one hand controlling the basketball, he looked up at the direction of the backboard, jumped lightly, and shot the ball. "Wow!" Amidst the cries of surprise, the ball Xiuyan shot and fell steadily into the basket. Chapter 29. Not bad. A 3-pointer with one hand. Who is this guy? He's amazing. This guy is quite handsome, how come I didn't notice him before? Isn't this our famous school beauty's fiancé, Xiuyan? Is it him? More and more people gathered to watch, and some recognized Xiuyan. The young man was wearing a blue school uniform, tall and slender, with a delicate white face under short black hair. The diamond stud in her right ear glistened in the light, blurring her facial expression. Listening to the cheers of the people around her, she just calmly stepped aside. Xiubo came over and snapped his fingers. "Handsome boy, not bad." Xiuyan gave him a look. "It's your turn." Xiubo smiled contemptuously. He waved his hand and someone ran to hand him the ball. Xiubo held the basketball in one hand and first did a fancy dribble. The handsome action attracted the girls in the crowd to scream repeatedly. "Wow! Xiubo is so handsome. I think he is the most handsome of the 4 school beauties." "I agree." Xiuyan's expressionless. "Xiubo, can you hurry up?" Xiubo coldly, "Are you in such a hurry to be abused by me?" Xiuyan gave him a dirty look. Xiubo didn't dawdle either. After a simple dribble, he jumped up and threw the ball into the basket. "Wow! Handsome!" The crowd cheered. Xiuqin planned to go home after the evening study session. She heard the cheers as she walked past the basketball court and decided to come over to join the fun. At a glance, she saw the dazzling man. Xiubo. Xiuqin's eyes were full of admiration. Xiuqin also entered this school because of the Xie family and is currently in the 10th grade. The next moment, Xiuqin saw the person next to Xiubo. Xiuyan? Xiuqin was a little incredulous. How did Xiuyan and Xiubo get together? Xiuqin's fingers clenched tightly around the hem of her shirt. Could it be that Xiuyan had suddenly refused to undergo gender reassignment because she had fallen in love with Xiubo? But how could Xiubo possibly have fallen for her? Xiuqin was racking her brains over this. Over there, Xiubo looked at Xiuyan. "What's the point of this again?" Xiuyan glanced at him, picked up the ball, and then stepped back 5 meters from the 3-point line. "What does that mean?" Xiubo raised his eyebrows slightly. Xiuyan didn't say a word. The basketball spun around her fingertips, she jumped, and shot. Bang! The basketball went straight into the basket. The crowd was silent for a few seconds, then they cheered. "Wow! That was amazing! It was more than 10 meters away. That was so accurate." Outside the court, Xiuqin was stunned. When did Xiuyan start playing basketball? Didn't she hate sports the most? Pop! Xiubo raised his eyebrows in surprise. He clapped his hands and walked up to Xiuyan. "No wonder she's so cocky, she's got something." Xiuyan still had no expression on her face. "Your turn." Xiubo waved his hand, and someone passed the ball to him. "Xiuyan is so good, can Xiubo make the shot?" "Of course he can. What's there to worry about?" "Exactly. When it comes to basketball, has Gu ever lost?" The crowd began to get nervous. Gu Xiubo stood in Su Yan's position. He didn't try to be cool. After dribbling, he shot with both hands, and the basketball spun around the hoop and landed steadily. Wow! There was a cheer. How was that? Gu Xiubo raised his eyebrows slightly. Su Yan said 2 words in a light tone, continue. Su Yan picked up the ball and retreated 5 meters from his previous position. Everyone. Gu Xiubo? Chapter 30, completely ignored. Su Yan stood there calmly. The crowd was in uproar. No way. No way. Su Yan is going to shoot from there? That's 16 to 17 meters from the backboard. He's so calm. He's definitely going to make it. He's so cool. Gu Xiubo's arrogant face became serious, and he stared at Su Yan. Pretty boy, are you sure? Su Yan gave him a look, speechless, but answered him with her actions. The other hand that Su Yan had been keeping in her pocket finally came out. She lightly moved her wrist, dribbled, jumped, and shot. At that moment, everyone looked up at the night sky intently. The basketball fell from Su Yan's palm, cutting through the sky and smashing into the backboard. Bang! The basketball landed on the rim. Suddenly, everyone's heart leapt. Except Su Yan's. The basketball spun around the basket twice before settling down. Wow! Amazing! You're so awesome, Su Yan. How can the school basketball team not have him? Gu Xiubo. This kid. Gu Xiubo had long since lost his carefree, laid-back attitude. He looked at Su Yan again, his expression serious. This kid really does have some skills. He had underestimated her. Su Yan felt his gaze and looked up at him. It's your turn. Gu Xiubo. This position. He hasn't missed before. But sometimes it goes in, and sometimes it doesn't. Well, actually most of the time it doesn't. Gu Xiao. Come on. You can do it. Gu Xiao, you're the captain of the basketball team, how can you lose to that kid Su Yan? Gu Xiao, come on. We support you. Shut up. Gu Xiubo yelled irritably. The crowd fell silent. Gu Xiubo held the basketball in his hand and looked up at the backboard 10 meters away. He took a deep breath. This was his specialty. His domain. He couldn't lose to Su Yan. Otherwise, where would his face be? Gu Xiubo concentrated, dribbled the ball for a while, and then shot. Gu Xiubo's breath was raised, and his eyes stared at the direction of the basketball without blinking. He silently repeated to himself, "Go in. Go in. Go in." The audience held their breath and stared at the basketball in the night sky. Bang! In the end, Gu Xiubo's wish came true. The basketball fell into the basket. Yes. Gu Xiubo jumped up in excitement. Wow! Gu Xiao is so amazing. That was great. There was a burst of gasps on the court. More and more people were gathering to watch, and the crowd was packed inside and out. Su Qin had to make a great effort to squeeze into the front row. She was overjoyed when she saw Gu Xiubo make the shot. Gu Xiao, you're amazing. Su Qin ran up to Gu Xiubo and said with admiration. Gu Xiubo glanced at her. Su Qin is 16 years old, 1.6 meters tall, and her looks are not bad, but they are not particularly good either. She can only be described as a pretty girl. Gu Xiubo only glanced at her and quickly looked away. Do you want to continue? Gu Xiubo looked at Su Yan defiantly. Although, that was already his limit. However, Gu Xiubo believed that this was also Su Yan's limit. Therefore, this round was a draw. Su Yan calmly said 2 words, continue. Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo froze in place. Su Yan ran to pick up the ball. Su Qin was completely ignored by Gu Xiubo. With so many people watching, she was completely humiliated. Damn Su Yan. Why didn't she tell Gu Xiubo that she was her sister? Did she deliberately want to embarrass her? Chapter 31, Admit Defeat. Su Yan came back with the ball. Brother! Su Qin shouted. She then winked at Su Yan, hoping that Su Yan would introduce them. Su Yan looked at Su Qin coldly. Gu Xiubo looked at Su Qin again because of her brother call, and asked Su Yan, your sister? Su Yan's expressionless, I don't know. Su Qin? Don't know? What do you mean you don't know? What's wrong with Su Yan? Not only does she refuse to change her gender, she even pretends not to know her? Is she out of control? Gu Xiubo no longer paid any attention to Su Qin. He followed Su Yan's footsteps and came to the bottom of the basket. Gu Xiubo? What does that mean? Su Yan is going to throw the basketball from this basket into the opposite basket? Is he crazy? Does he know how long this basketball court is? 28 meters. 28 meters. It was only 16 or 17 meters. Is this 28 meters a joke? However, Su Yan's expressionless face didn't look like she was joking. Gu Xiubo's expression on his face was frozen, but he still asked, Su Yan, how do you want to play? Su Yan simply said, I'll go first. After that, Su Yan dribbled the ball a few times and then shot it cleanly. Oh my god. She's crazy. Is Su Yan crazy? She's actually standing under the opposite basket and shooting. Could she really make it? She's not human, she's a god. As soon as Su Yan made the motion to shoot, the crowd erupted. While they were still talking, Su Yan's basketball shot landed firmly in the opposite basket. She made it. Did she make it? Am I dreaming? This is too unreal. Oh my god. Su Yan is really not human. She's a god. This is so awesome. With Su Yan as our god, do we still have to worry about the basketball game next month? We will definitely win. There were exclamations of surprise everywhere. They were all for Su Yan. But Su Yan, the main character, remained calm and collected. It was as if the amazing thing that everyone saw was commonplace to her. Su Yan looked at Gu Xiubo, whose mouth was wide open as if he could fit an egg in it, and said coldly, It's your turn. Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo didn't know how to describe his feelings. Shocked, surprised, and angry. He lost to Su Yan. Gu Xiubo was crazy, but he also had a good sense of self. He really couldn't stand here and throw the ball into the opposite basket like Su Yan. Just as everyone was staring at Gu Xiubo in curiosity, Gu Xiubo shouted, I give up. Everyone. Gu Xiao gave up? Gu Xiao is so proud, but he actually gave up? Su Yan is indeed too strong, and Gu Xiao had to admit defeat. Gu Xiao is also able to bend and yield. He is worthy of being the school's most popular guy. He has a sense of proportion. Amidst the crowd's compliments, Su Yan looked at Gu Xiubo. Admit defeat? You mean completely admit defeat and agree to leave 316? Gu Xiubo went crazy. You little white face, don't think you can open a dye shop just because you've been given a little color. Gu Xiubo pointed angrily at Su Yan. Su Yan remained expressionless. I understand, you only lost in basketball. After saying that, Su Yan left the basketball court first. Gu Xiubo clenched his fists. Losing to Su Yan in basketball was purely an accident. Running, however, was his strong point. He had never lost in the 100-meter, 400-meter, or 800-meter races. No matter how Su Yan raced, Gu Xiubo easily followed behind him. The other students saw that there was still more to see and followed them to the playground. Chapter 32, Marathon. School Playground. The school playground is very large. It is almost 10:30. The dormitory closes at 11:30, but the playground is full of people. Gu Xiubo is doing stretching exercises. He wants to avenge his previous defeat. He can't lose to Su Yan again and again. Su Yan is also stretching. This is a basic warm-up before strenuous exercise to prevent muscle strain. Everyone is watching the two of them curiously. How are they going to compete? Gu Xiubo is confident, so he hands the initiative over to Su Yan. What do you want to do, pretty boy? Su Yan pulls his lips back. Marathon. Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo is speechless. Marathon? Do you want to run until tomorrow morning? There is no time limit in a marathon. Whoever stops running first loses. It's more fun when there are more people running. Are they running a marathon? Are they kidding? Su Yan gave him a look. Are you up for it? Gu Xiubo snorted. What's there that I'm not up for? Su Yan took off her jacket and placed it on a plant, then stood at the starting line. Gu Xiubo was in position as well. 1, 2, 3. The moment the 3 was said, Su Yan immediately jumped out. As fast as the wind. Gu Xiubo? Gu Xiubo shouted behind her, Su Yan, you bastard. Is this a marathon? Do you think this is a sprint of 100 meters? At this speed, Su Yan is sprinting 100 meters, right? Everyone knows that you need to save your strength in a marathon, otherwise you will soon be unable to run. However, Su Yan is running so fast. So many people were watching, and Gu Xiubo naturally didn't want to lose out. He had to summon up the strength of a 100-meter sprint and quickly catch up with Su Yan. Gu, come on. Su Yan has already pulled away from you by 200 meters. Shut up. Gu Xiubo was furious. Gu Xiubo had excellent stamina. But no matter how good it was, at such a fast pace, he couldn't last long. But Su Yan was like a man who knew no fatigue, running madly forward. The distance between Gu Xiubo and her was getting bigger and bigger. Gu Xiubo had to run like crazy to keep up. Gu Xiao, come on. Su Yan is catching up to you. In other words, Su Yan was about to catch up to Gu Xiubo. One lap is 1,500 meters. Soon, Su Yan was right next to Gu Xiubo. At this point, Su Yan had run 4 laps, 6,000 meters. Gu Xiubo had only run 3 laps, 4,500 meters. It was already quite an achievement to have run so far at such a fast pace. Gu Xiubo was panting and even had some difficulty breathing. However, when Su Yan passed him, she was breathing steadily and her steps were steady. Su Yan soon overtook Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo was a very proud person, and seeing that the distance between him and Su Yan was getting farther and farther, he ran forward as if he were determined to win. Su Qin ran up to him, Gu Xiao, this is a marathon, you should slow down. Su Yan likes to run, so let her run. When she runs out of energy, you will win. Su Qin then offered Gu Xiao some water. Gu Xiao, drink some water, don't rush, run slowly. You are right. Gu Xiao was tired and thirsty, so he took the water that Su Qin offered him. And his pace gradually slowed down. That's right, this is a marathon. It's not about who is faster. It's about who has more stamina. As a result of Gu Xiubo slowing down, Su Yan was 2 laps ahead of him, 3 laps, 4 laps, 5 laps. He was getting tired. Su Yan, on the other hand, was still running at the speed of a 100-meter sprint, lap after lap, as if she had no energy. Chapter 33, Mind Your Own Business. Gu Xiao, come on. Su Yan has already been ahead of you for many laps. If you don't run, you'll lose. Someone shouted. Gu Xiubo felt so tired. He had difficulty breathing, his chest ached from the cold air rushing in, and his legs felt like they were filled with lead, making every step incredibly difficult. Gu Xiubo felt like he was dying. Gu Xiubo's speed was getting slower and slower. He was even slower than the onlookers. But he kept going. He gritted his teeth and kept going. Gu Xiao, why don't you give up? Su Qin looked at Gu Xiubo and was so distressed that she cried. Su Yan, really? What marathon is this? Look at how Gu Xiao is suffering. Gu Xiubo didn't even pay attention to her. All his energy was in his legs. He had to keep going. He had to run. He couldn't lose. He had never lost in his 18 years of life. He couldn't lose to that little white-faced Su Yan, whom he despised. Gu Xiubo's will was very strong. But his body was not. With a thud, Gu Xiubo fell to the ground. The 1.88-meter tall man fell straight down, face down. A cloud of dust rose. His eyes rolled back. Gu Xiubo fainted. His body had reached its limit. Oh my God! Gu has fainted. The crowd let out a cry of alarm. Quickly! Quickly take him to the school clinic. Everyone hurried to carry Gu Xiubo to the clinic. Gu Xiubo had fainted, and everyone followed. At this time, no one cared about the outcome of the competition between Su Yan and Gu Xiubo. The playground, which had been so lively, was suddenly deserted in a matter of minutes. Su Yan slowed down and ran another half lap. She stopped. After running for so long, Su Yan was covered in sweat. However, her breathing was steady. This good physical fitness was brought from the world of fast running. Su Yan! An angry female voice shouted behind her. Su Yan pretended not to hear, and walked straight towards the dormitory. Su Qin was furious. She ran up quickly and grabbed Su Yan's wrist. Su Yan! Why did you pretend not to know me just now? Su Qin asked angrily. She had made a fool of herself in front of Gu Xiubo. Su Yan pushed her hand away. I'm sorry, I'm a girl, not your brother. Su Qin. Su Qin was furious. You know, just now because there were so many people, I had to call you that. Su Yan's expressionless. Then please pretend you don't know me next time. Su Qin. After Su Yan said that, she walked forward with one hand in her pocket. After taking a few steps, she turned back. That. Su Qin thought she was going to say something to her. Who knew that Su Yan just walked past her? Su Yan forgot to take her jacket. She didn't feel it when she was running, but now the night wind was blowing and it was a little chilly. Su Yan. Su Qin followed her. You made Gu Xiubo faint. Don't you want to go to the infirmary to see if you're okay? Su Yan gave her a look. Mind your own business. Su Qin. Su Yan left after saying that. Su Qin caught up with her again, looked around, and saw no one. She softened her tone. Sister, what happened to you? Why did you become like this? Su Yan stopped in her tracks. If you replace me and marry Xia Yuhan, I'll tell you. Su Qin. Su Qin didn't say anything. Su Yan snorted. If you can't do it, then get out of the way. After that, Su Yan walked away without looking back. Su Qin looked at her thin back and clenched her fists. What the hell is going on? Su Yan has gone too far. Never mind. Mom said Su Yan would be home this weekend. Let her be a bully now. When she gets back home, she'll get what's coming to her. Su Qin stamped her foot at Su Yan's back. Chapter 34. Don't push your luck. Su Yan returned to room 316 before the dormitory closed. Fu Yanlin was already lying on the bed with his eyes covered, presumably asleep. Xiubo was wearing a black robe and leaning against the bed, still holding the book The Evolution of Lawyers in his hand. Hearing the noise, he lifted his eyelids and looked towards the door with his deep eyes under his gold-rimmed glasses. Back already? Yes, haven't you gone to bed yet? Su Yan nodded. Xiubo said, Su Yan, you're famous. Su Yan was puzzled. What's famous? Xiubo, the news about you and Gu Xiubo shooting hoops in the basketball game was posted on the school forum. Su Yan. Su Yan was not emotional, but said, I'm all sweaty, I'm going to take a shower. Xiubo's lips curled up. It seems that this roommate is not simple. He closed his book, put on his eye mask, and went to sleep. Gu Xiubo was scolded by the school doctor. He was ordered to lie on his sickbed for 3 days. Gu Xiubo agreed for the first time. Because he lost to Su Yan. It also means that he has to move out of 316. It's just too embarrassing. He doesn't even want to face Su Yan. These 3 days, he just happened to have an excuse to escape. Su Yan is indeed famous. The next day, many people came to see her in class 316. He is Su Yan. He looks so weak, but he can actually make Gu Xiubo dizzy. Is he the one? He can even pitch better than Gu Xiubo? Not to mention, he is quite handsome. Facing so many people coming to see him. Su Yan has no expression on her face, and no emotions at all. Wang Tao, who was sitting in front of her, was jealous and resentful. He said in a strange voice, some people are really annoying. They can't study well, and they also make a lot of trouble, causing a large group of people to gather at the door of the classroom, affecting others' studies. Shut up. Su Yan kicked him in the chair. Wang Tao. Wang Tao glared at Su Yan fiercely. He dared to be angry but not to speak. 2 days later. Gu Xiubo had to return to 316. Su Yan, Xiubo, and Fu Yanlin were all there. Su Yan was waiting for him in the dormitory. Is everything okay? Xiubo asked Gu Xiubo. Originally, Gu Xiubo was quite embarrassed. Xiubo's question relieved his embarrassment. He touched his nose and glanced at Su Yan, saying, it's fine. Xiubo smiled and said no more. Fu Yanlin didn't care about what was going on outside the window, and was absorbed in his math problem. For him, finding the person as soon as possible was the most important thing. Nothing else mattered. Su Yan sat on the chair, looking at Gu Xiubo, who had just walked in, with a cold expression. You have 15 minutes to move out. Gu Xiubo glared at her. Su Yan, don't you dare to push me around. Su Yan, what, you don't want to lose? Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo's newly arisen arrogance immediately died down. He gritted his teeth, fine. I'll move. If I lose, I lose. I'll move. Xiubo rolled up the quilt on the bed and carried it out. He stood at the door and looked back at Su Yan. Su Yan, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, you did it on purpose, right? Su Yan didn't even spare him a glance. Xiubo. Damn it. This brat. Xiubo slammed the door. Fu Yanlin frowned when he heard the door close. Junzuo adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and looked at Su Yan. Do you hate him that much? Su Yan said indifferently, I don't hate him, but he's deliberately picking on me. I'm just trying to avoid trouble. If we don't live together, there won't be any trouble. Junzuo praised, you must be the first person in this school to make Xiubo feel inferior. Su Yan's lips curled up and she looked at Junzuo. Brother Wu, is this important? Junzuo nodded, yes, it's not important. As the two were talking, the door was knocked on. Junzuo and Su Yan glanced at each other. Junzuo got up to open the door. When he saw the person at the door, Junzuo froze. Chapter 35, Return. Hello, I'm your new roommate. Please take good care of me. The man outside the door had a rolled-up quilt in one hand and a list in the other, raising his eyebrows defiantly. Junzuo. The man outside the door was none other than Xiubo, who had returned. Junzuo looked at him speechlessly. Xiubo, what are you singing about? Xiubo shook the list in his hand. I obeyed the school's arrangement, what's wrong with that? Junzuo. Obey the school's arrangement? The dean of students is his aunt, who doesn't everyone in the school know? Xiubo raised the list in his hand again. What, this student doesn't welcome the new roommate? Junzuo didn't bother to respond to him and let him pass. Xiubo walked in with his quilt in his arms. Originally, he lived near the bathroom, separated from Su Yan by an empty bed. At this moment, Xiubo placed his quilt directly on the bed next to Su Yan. From now on, he and Su Yan would be neighbors. Junzuo. Fu Yanlin. Junzuo was speechless. Fu Yanlin frowned. He had originally planned to change rooms. But the dean of students said there were no suitable beds available for the time being. Xiubo was moving out, so there was no need for him to move out. But then Xiubo came back. It seems that he still has to move out. Xiubo sneaks up to Su Yan. Hello, classmate, I'll be your new roommate from now on, please take care of me. Su Yan, get out. Xiubo's true colors show at once. Su Yan, do you want to be beaten? Su Yan looked coldly at him. Xiubo, our bet was that you would move out of 316. What do you mean now? Xiubo stuck out his neck. What do I mean? Didn't I move out as you said? But I still need a bed, don't I? There were only empty beds in 316, so I was assigned back here. You can't blame me for that, can you? Su Yan didn't believe a word of what he said. Xiubo, I can abuse you anytime I want. You'd better behave yourself. Su Yan's expressionless warning. Xiubo. Damn it. How can this little bastard be so arrogant? Afraid that Su Yan would kick him out of the dormitory, Xiubo gritted his teeth and endured it. Xiubo naturally stayed. At noon, after lunch, Xiubo hurried back to the dormitory. He was naturally waiting for Su Yan. However, Su Yan went straight to the library. He waited for a whole afternoon, but didn't see Su Yan's shadow. After the evening study session, Xiubo hurried back to the dormitory. Su Yan would never stay out all night. The evening study session ended at 10 o'clock. Su Yan came back at 10:18 p.m. Xiubo sat on the chair and pretended to read a book when he saw Su Yan come back. You're back, pretty boy. Xiubo waved at Su Yan with a big smile. Su Yan put down her textbooks and brushed her teeth as if she hadn't seen him. Xiubo hurried after her. He took out his toothpaste and toothbrush and brushed his teeth as well. He stood next to Su Yan. His elbow touched Su Yan every now and then. Every time he touched her, she moved a little to the side. Xiubo followed her again. Su Yan retreated to the corner. Are you done? Xiubo pretended to be puzzled. Are you brushing your teeth and I'm brushing mine, is that bothering you? Su Yan gave him a cold glance. She finished brushing her teeth in a few seconds. Su Yan turned and entered the bathroom. Xiubo wanted to follow her. Su Yan slammed the door. If he wasn't quick enough, he would have knocked his nose off. Xiubo touched his nose. we're both men, why do we need to close the door when we go to the bathroom? Chapter 36, Ignoring Him? Su Yan heard his words from inside. Her face instantly turned black. Su Yan came out of the bathroom. Xiubo was standing at the bathroom door. When she came out, he looked around, but wouldn't make eye contact with Su Yan. Su Yan went to the closet to get her pajamas. Xiubo quickly took his pajamas too. The moment Su Yan entered the bathroom, he squeezed in. Let's wash together, pretty boy, to save time. Xiubo said this as a matter of course. Su Yan. Su Yan's face was dark. Xiubo, is there something wrong with you? Xiubo's hair stood on end. Try saying that again. Su Yan's expressionless. Get out. Xiubo didn't think so. What's wrong with washing together? You're not well developed and you're afraid I'll see you? Aren't men all the same size? Su Yan. Su Yan immediately grabbed one of Xiubo's hands and pushed him out of the room. Get out. At the same time, Su Yan threw his pajamas back at him. She closed and locked the door in one go. Su Yan really wanted to hit him. But she didn't think Xiubo could take a punch. After all, he was a sports student who could faint from running. Damn it. You're such a sissy, you're not even a man. Xiubo smashed the wall in anger. He just wanted to get a little closer to her, didn't he? Why was it so hard? What's wrong with you? Xiubo came back from outside and saw Xiubo in a state of desperation. Xiubo immediately calmed down, raised his chin, and still had that condescending look on his face. I'm fine. Xiubo glanced at Su Yan's desk. Su Yan is taking a bath? Yes. Xiubo nodded in frustration. Xiubo frowned. Why are you standing there while she's taking a bath? A peeping Tom? Xiubo looked down his nose. We're both men, so what's the big deal? Xiubo, so men have no privacy? Su Yan could call the police in your situation. Do you understand? Xiubo shrugged. I understand, my future lawyer. In the end, Xiubo came over. Xiubo ignored him. Xiubo sat on a stool. His legs were very long, even when he was sitting, you could tell. He looked in the direction of the bathroom and idly played with his wristband. Half an hour later, Su Yan came out. Girls always take their time in the shower. Su Yan heard what Xiubo and Xiubo were saying in the bathroom. Su Yan smiled at Xiubo. Big brother, you came back so late today? Xiubo nodded. I went to the library. Xiubo pointed at Su Yan. You smiled? You smiled at Xiubo? Why did you smile at him? Su Yan. Xiubo. Su Yan was speechless. She ignored Xiubo's words and said to Xiubo, Big brother, I'm going to sleep. Good night. Good night. Xiubo smiled. You guys just met each other, didn't you? When did you become so close? Xiubo gritted his teeth. However, no one paid any attention to him. Xiubo went to take a shower. Su Yan went to bed and pulled the curtain closed. Xiubo. Damn. Is he being isolated? What did he do? At this time, Fu Yanlin returned. Hey. Don't talk to me. Fu Yanlin said coldly. It's been a few days, and no one has been able to solve the math problem he wrote on the blackboard. Can't that person solve it either? Fu Yanlin sat in the math challenge room until the dormitory was about to close before returning. He was in a bad mood. Xiubo. Xiubo walked into the bathroom and smelled the clean fragrance in the bathroom. This smell made him speechless. He muttered, it smells good. Chapter 37, he took off his glasses. Su Yan pulled the curtain and closed her eyes to sleep. Xiubo saw Su Yan go to bed, so he quickly climbed into bed. Xiubo rolled his eyes and lay down next to Su Yan. Just as Su Yan was about to fall asleep, she felt something move at her feet. She reflexively raised her foot. Ow! Xiubo lay on the bed, carefully lifting Su Yan's curtain to see if she was asleep. If she wasn't, he would chat with her. But as soon as he lifted the curtain, Su Yan kicked him hard in the shoulder. Xiubo was kicked straight into the air, falling from the single bed more than a meter high and landing on the floor. Ow! Xiubo cried out in pain. He was in pain all over. His butt must have been broken. Su Yan. Are you crazy? Gu Xiubo was furious. He lay on the ground and couldn't get up for a while. Su Yan had finally woken up. She lifted the curtain and looked at Gu Xiubo on the ground with a cold expression. You lifted my curtain, so I gave you a kick. When Si Junjiao came out of the shower, he saw Gu Xiubo lying on the ground in a miserable state. At first, he felt a little sympathy for him. But when he heard Su Yan's words, his eyebrows immediately furrowed. Fu Yanlin was also shocked by Gu Xiubo's sudden fall. He frowned tightly. He didn't say anything. But, this dormitory is really unbearable to live in. It's too noisy. Especially after Su Yan moved in. So, it's not him who should leave. It should be Su Yan. Fu Yanlin's cold eyes swept Su Yan. He got up to wash and didn't join in the farce. Su Yan. You bastard. I'm telling you, I can't take it anymore. I'm in pain, I must have hurt myself somewhere. You have to pay for my medical expenses. You have to take me to the infirmary now, hurry. Gu Xiubo lay on the ground, glaring at Su Yan, who was sitting on the bed. Before Su Yan could say anything, a cold voice rang out. Before I take you to the infirmary, I think it's necessary to call the police first, and let them catch the peeping Tom. Si Junzuo wiped his wet hair while staring at Gu Xiubo on the ground. The chill in his deep eyes behind the glasses was palpable. Get up! Junzo said coldly. Gu Xiubo. Hearing Junzo's cold voice, Gu Xiubo's spine immediately shot up with a chill. Is this guy angry? What kind of anger is he feeling? He looked up at Junzo's deep eyes. This look is really angry. Gu Xiubo quickly rolled over and got up from the ground. He really hurt himself. The movement of getting up pulled on his muscles, and he gritted his teeth in pain. Ah! It hurts. Si Junzu's eyes were cold, and he looked up at Gu Xiubo's bed. Take your quilt back to your original bed. Ah? Why? Gu Xiubo was confused. Si Junzu looked at him. I'm going to live here. Gu Xiubo immediately refused. Why? I want to be next to Su Yan. Say that again. Si Junzu slowly removed the gold-rimmed glasses from his face, revealing a pair of narrow, deep eyes. His cold gaze slowly looked at Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo. Damn. This guy took off his glasses. He took off his glasses. Gu Xiubo immediately backed down. He hurriedly said, I'll move it, fifth brother, I'll move it right away. Gu Xiubo quickly rolled over and moved his quilt to the empty space next to him. Si Junzuo slowly put on his glasses, and his lips rose slightly in satisfaction. Su Yan? Why is Gu Xiubo so afraid of Si Junzuo? Before, Si Junzuo told her not to provoke Gu Xiubo. In fact, the person in this dormitory who should not be provoked is Si Junzuo? Chapter 38, Shouldn't You Be Leaving? Si Junzu looked up at Su Yan. Su Yan, can I live next to you? His lips curled up slightly, and his face still had his usual gentle smile. He looked like a gentleman and a nobleman. Such a handsome young man. Su Yan looked at the man's handsome face and nodded, okay. Su Yan knew that Si Junzu was helping her out. Si Junzu is really warm. She had only been in the dormitory for a few days, and Si Junzuo had helped her out several times. Si Junzuo moved his quilt next to Su Yan's. Si Junzuo got into bed and lay down. His feet were facing Gu Xiubo. Gu Xiubo rolled his eyes. He also turned around and pointed his feet at Si Junzuo. Su Yan's head was originally against the wall. It was not good for her feet to be facing Si Junzuo. She changed the direction of her pillow. Her head was only about 10 centimeters away from Si Junzuo's. Thank you, fifth brother. Su Yan said softly. Si Junzuo, it's nothing. It's late. Go to sleep. Su Yan pulled up her curtain. Cut. Gu Xiubo grunted several times as he listened to the two whispering. He pulled the quilt over his face and held it tightly. What a sin! When Fu Yanlin came out, the dormitory had already quieted down. He was slightly surprised to see that Si Junzuo had moved into the room next to Su Yan. He didn't care. He turned off the light and went to bed. After a night of noise, it was finally quiet. The next day. At 6 o'clock, Si Junzuo went for his usual run. He got up very quietly, but it still woke Su Yan up. Su Yan got up. As soon as she got out of bed, Gu Xiubo got up too. She brushed her teeth, and Xiubo brushed his teeth next to her. Su Yan was a little annoyed with him. Xiubo finally asked the question he had been holding back for a few days. Little white face, you're so good at shooting, why don't you join the school basketball team? Su Yan, not interested. Xiubo asked again, then you're so good at running, why don't you apply to be a sports specialist? This way you can get into a good university even if your academic performance is not good. Su Yan, not necessary. Xiubo was a little annoyed. Su Yan, what do you mean? You are always so cold and indifferent to everything I ask you, but why do you smile like a flower when you talk to Junzuo? Su Yan continued to be cold. What does it have to do with you? Xiubo. Fu Yanlin was awakened by the two of them arguing again. No matter how good his temperament was, he couldn't stand it anymore. Fu Yanlin sat up, removed the eye patch from his face, and looked at the two people at the sink. Can you two stop fighting in the morning? We're not fighting. Xiubo said. Su Yan looked at Fu Yanlin. The day I moved in, didn't you say you were going to kick me out of 316? Why don't you kick him out? Xiubo, what do you mean, Su Yan? Using a knife to kill someone? You wish. I'm not leaving. Fu Yanlin, you should leave, Su Yan. Su Yan pursed her lips slightly, staring at Fu Yanlin, waiting for him to continue. Fu Yanlin's cold face was full of displeasure. Su Yan, shouldn't you leave? Ever since you moved in, the dormitory has never been quiet. Fu Yanlin doesn't like to argue with people. But he really can't stand it anymore. His bottom line is that he can't be disturbed while studying. But now, not to mention studying. I can't even sleep well. Before Su Yan came, the dormitory was very quiet. Su Yan, I'm sorry, I'm not leaving. Xiubo nodded, yes, she's not leaving. Fu Yanlin. Chapter 39, Ungrateful. Fu Yanlin frowned and felt even more displeased with Su Yan. He stopped talking after saying that. Fu Yanlin didn't say anything else. Su Yan finished washing up, changed into her school uniform, and left the dormitory. Xiubo chased after her. Su Yan, I haven't finished talking to you. Xiubo stopped Su Yan. Su Yan, go ahead. Xiubo, you're too cold to me. Su Yan turned around and was about to leave. Xiubo quickly said, Su Yan, I'm giving you a chance. If you beg me, I'll let you join the school basketball team and play against the 10th middle school next month. Su Yan, no need. After Su Yan finished speaking, she walked towards the teaching building. Xiubo chased after her with his long legs. Su Yan, do you know that I don't always say yes when people beg me? I only agreed to you because we live in the same dormitory. Don't be ungrateful. Su Yan stopped in her tracks. I like being ungrateful. Xiubo. Su Yan walked on. She walked for more than 10 meters. Xiubo shouted behind her, hey, do you really not want to join the basketball team? No. Su Yan didn't turn around. Xiubo. This little bastard is as hard and as smelly as a stone in the toilet. After the morning reading session, Fu Yanlin went straight to the homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang. Fu Yanlin got straight to the point. Mr. Zhang, I hope you can ask Su Yan to move out of 316. She is seriously affecting my studies. Mr. Zhang asked, what has she done? Fu Yanlin, she and Xiubo are always fighting, which affects my rest. Teacher Zhang was silent for a moment, then said, wait a minute. I'll call Su Yan over. Fu Yanlin said, that's not necessary. He didn't want to argue with anyone. He didn't want to fight with anyone. Teacher Zhang insisted, I have to hear what Su Yan has to say. At Teacher Zhang's school, students with good grades and students with bad grades were treated equally. Fu Yanlin frowned, forget it. It's so troublesome. Let's see. Today is Friday. After the afternoon class, the school is on holiday. Su Yan plans to borrow some books to read. On the way back from the library to the dormitory at noon, Su Yan was suddenly stopped by a large group of girls. They were all indignant. Su Yan, you caused Gu Xiaoyu to go to the hospital again and lose face. You can do it. It turned out that Xiubo's fans came to seek justice for Xiubo. Su Yan looked at them expressionlessly and gently placed the books on the ground. She slowly snapped her fingers, and her dark eyes fell on the girl who was leading the group. Are you going to come one by one, or all at once? The girls? The girls looked at each other in confusion. Looking at the cold aura emanating from the young man in front of them, no one dared to come forward. 1 second ago, they were all brave and wanted to fight for the male god, Xiubo. The next second, they were all scared. Su Yan was impatient. If you want to, hurry up, if not, get lost. Still no one moved. Su Yan bent down to pick up the book on the ground. When she saw her coming, the girls automatically gave her way. After she passed by, the girl in charge shouted, "Su Yan, don't be arrogant. We can't do anything about you. I don't believe the dean's office can't do anything." Su Yan just coldly pulled her lips. Dean's office? What did she do? They reported her to the dean's office? She was just playing basketball with Xiubo. They were running together at the same time. Xiubo was too weak and fainted. What did she have to do with it? Su Yan was fearless. However, in the afternoon break, Su Yan was really invited into the dean's office. Chapter 40, If you want to punish someone, punish me. Class 30. Xiubo sat in his chair with a pile of books in front of him. He was thinking hard about how to get Su Yan to join the school basketball team. Last year, the school basketball team won a close game against number 10 middle school. This year, Xiubo hoped to win more easily. Su Yan was very talented. Xiubo really wanted Su Yan to join the team. But that little bastard Su Yan doesn't seem to want to do it at all. Xiao, I have good news for you. A girl excitedly approached Xiubo. Xiubo's handsome and determined face showed confusion. What good news? The girl said with a sense of accomplishment, "We reported Su Yan to the school office. She didn't know how to offend you. Your aunt won't let her off lightly. She'll either be expelled or receive a severe reprimand. This is revenge for you." Xiubo. Xiubo's face changed suddenly, and he stared at the girl in front of him. Just as the girl was smiling at Xiubo, waiting for him to praise her, Xiubo slammed his textbook down. "Are you sick? Girl?" The girl was scared by Xiubo's sudden temper and her shoulders shook. Did she do something wrong? She just wanted to help Xiubo get justice. Xiubo ran out quickly. He was going to the guidance office to find Su Yan. After running a few steps, Xiubo turned around and said coldly, "Remember, Su Yan is my buddy. Whoever gets on her bad side is getting on my bad side." Everyone. What's going on? Su Yan made Xiubo lose face. Xiubo and Su Yan became buddies? This is amazing. Guidance office. Su Yan knocked on the door and entered the office of the head of the guidance department. The head of the guidance department was a middle-aged woman in her 40s. She was wearing a business suit, her hair was perfectly combed, she was well-maintained and looked very beautiful. "Director, you wanted to see me?" Su Yan knocked on the door and entered. "Sit." Director Gu raised her hand. Her every gesture was graceful. Su Yan sat down. Director Gu looked at Su Yan. "You are the one who made my unruly little nephew lose face at home?" The video of Su Yan and Xiubo's competition was uploaded to the school forum. The forum is full of people in disguise. Everyone speaks their mind. Some people are surprised at Su Yan's prowess. More people are laughing at Xiubo for not being able to beat a sissy. Xiubo is too arrogant at school. That's why he got bitten so badly. Su Yan. Director Gu smiled. "Don't be nervous. I didn't call you here to punish you." Su Yan, "I'm not nervous." Su Yan was puzzled. What exactly did the director want to talk to me about? "Auntie." Before the director could answer, Xiubo rushed in. "Auntie." He grabbed the director's arm and said, "Auntie, if you expel Su Yan, I won't study here anymore. If you give Su Yan a severe reprimand, then give me one too. I started this, it has nothing to do with Su Yan." Director Gu. Su Yan. Director Gu looked at her nephew, who had suddenly burst in, and she deliberately made a stern face. "Xiubo, did you knock on the door before coming in?" Xiubo, "Auntie. At this hour, why would I knock on the door?" Director Gu. Xiubo said again, "Auntie, it's all my fault. If you want to punish someone, punish me. It has nothing to do with Su Yan. Don't believe the slander. You are an upright director of education."